Clerk, the time is 7 p.m. on Tuesday, February the 1st, 2022. I'd like to call this general committee meeting to order. Members of council, before we start the actual meeting, I'd like to pass on some sad news. We heard about the passing of former councillor David Griffith. David was a respected member of the town of Aurora Council, serving from 1992 to 2003. I'd like to ask for just a moment of silence at this time in respect for Mr. Griffith. Thank you. We would like to start by acknowledging that the land on which we live and work is the traditional territory of the Wendat, the Haudenosaunee, and Anishinaabe peoples whose presence here continues to this day. Aurora is part of the treaty lands of the Mississaugas of the Credit and the William Treaties First Nations. We acknowledge and thank them for sharing this land with us. A shared understanding of how the rich cultural heritage that has existed for centuries and of how our collective past brought us to where we are today will help us walk together into a brighter future. Members of council, may I have a motion to approve the revised agenda? Mayor Maracas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Chair, I would like to add a closed session item. It's confidential verbal update from our CAO in regards to some personnel matters.
Thank you. Members of council, it requires 2/3 to add this item to the agenda. All those in favor of adding the closed session item?
Seconder.
All in favor? Sorry, I should have asked who's seconding it first. Councillor Gilliland, thank you so much. Now, may I have a motion to approve the revised agenda? Mayor Maracas, Councillor Kim, all those in favor? Motion carries. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, we will move on to community presentations. This evening, we have one community presentation. Brian Titherington, Director of Transportation and Infrastructure Planning, and Lauren Crawford, Manager of Transportation and Long-Term Planning regarding the York Region 2022 Transportation Master Plan. Council, they've asked for 10 minutes. It is a fairly lengthy presentation. I'll certainly allow it. Please state your name and you can begin at any time.
Good evening. Thanks for having us tonight. My name is Brian Tidrington. I'm with York Region. Sorry if I missed that introduction at the beginning. We had about a 10-minute presentation, which I think is 5 minutes longer than usual. So hopefully that's still okay. And I'll get Lauren Crawford, who's our Manager of Transportation Long-Term Planning, to run through it. And then we're happy to stick around for any questions.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brian. Good evening, everyone. Thank you again for the opportunity to provide an update on York Region's draft master plan. This evening's presentation will focus on our transportation networks and focus areas that we are recommending for the 2022 Transportation Master Plan update. I'll just take a moment to share my screen here and hopefully everyone can see the screen. Okay, all right, I'll just advance that to the next one. Okay, so as I mentioned, the presentation this evening will focus on our transportation network maps that identify the proposed cycling, roads, and rapid transit needs to support planned growth over the next 30 years, which is to the year 2051. You'll also hear about our proposed focus areas, which are more detailed issues that we believe need to be addressed in the council 4-year term following the completion of the Transportation Master Plan. And the network maps and focus areas being presented today are drafts and represent improvements that regional staff feel meet the transportation needs of the community based on what we feel are realistic future funding assumptions. And as such, the maps and focus areas are subject to change. So they are still in draft form. And those changes are based on input that we're receiving from residents, from local and regional councils and other stakeholders over the past few months and as we move forward. The Transportation Master Plan, I did want to mention, will also not be providing details about when over the next 30 years specific projects should be built. Details on the timing of the projects will continue to be determined through the region's 10-year capital plan, which is approved each year by council. Okay, so the project update or transportation master plan is being coordinated with other regional studies through the municipal comprehensive review process, which ensures that the outcomes of the TMP align with updates to the regional official plan, our water and wastewater plan, and the development charges bylaw. A draft of the TMP will be presented to Regional Council in March for their review, and the final version we're targeting to bring forward to Council in June for endorsement. We are following a 3-phase process to update the Transportation Master Plan, and throughout each phase of the study, staff have been engaging with the public, reaching out to stakeholders as well to seek input and share ideas on the future of transportation in York Region. We're currently completing phase 2 of our study, which focused on exploring the transportation network alternatives and identifying the preferred networks for 2051. As well, we've been completing a number of background studies and working on developing those focus areas that I mentioned earlier. And we're now starting to move into phase 3 of the TMP study. We'll continue to be consulting with local municipal staff and councils, residents, and stakeholders as we work towards finalizing that master plan and bringing it to council in June. So I just want to go over what we've heard so far. This slide just shows some of the key themes that summarize what we've heard from over 1,000 respondents across the region about what they feel is most important for making travel decisions and the desired future for transportation. So our team had reached out to and heard from residents, business owners, travelers. We spoke with regional councilors and mayors, local municipal staff, and partners at a number of different government agencies. And as you can see, many of these themes do relate to enhancing access to a variety of travel options that provide connections that are safe, reliable, convenient, and environmentally sustainable. We've heard that there has been a strong interest in walking and cycling, and we did see this as a growing trend even before the pandemic, but especially over the past 2 years, having easy access to walking and cycling facilities has become even more important. The region already has a solid system in place to plan and build sidewalks with our local municipalities. And through this TMP update, we're progressively planning for the cycling network to be developed over the next 30 years. So we've mapped out the cycling network into 2 maps, just so it's a bit easier to read and understand. One is for commuter cycling and the second one is for recreational cycling. But the maps do work together to showcase where we're looking to build off-street facilities on regional roads, and then also working with our partners at the local municipalities and government and conservation authority partners as well to build those connections through to the trails across the network. So as I mentioned, this is the first of 2 cycling maps that's being proposed for the 2022 TMP update, and it's really intended to showcase the regional road cycling network that we anticipate being primarily for commuter cyclists. This second cycling map recognizes the strong regional trail network that spans York Region and crosses regional boundaries, and it really would be used mostly by pedestrians and cyclists for recreational uses. You'll note on this map that we've called out a few trails of regional significance, such as the Lake to Lake cycling route and walking trail, which will provide a 121-kilometer link from Lake Simcoe to Lake Ontario. We're almost at 80% complete on that trail currently. And through the study, we've also heard that more people than ever before are interested in taking transit. We've developed the 2051 Rapid Transit Network based on the following guidelines. So ensuring that it aligns with provincial plans to deliver subways and GO expansion, looking to protect for additional corridors over the longer term to address York Region's interests, and then focusing on infrastructure as opposed to transit service, given that the TMP is our long-term planning resource. So as you can see on the map on the left, we've shown the bus rapid transit ways on regional roads, the Spadina and Yonge subway corridors, as well as we're showing protected corridors for subway extensions north to Major Mackenzie Drive. We've indicated provincial transit ways along 400 series highways and the proposed GTA West Highway, as well as expanded GO rail corridors. So although there's been an increased interest in cycling and walking and also taking transit, we do recognize that for many who live in the region, the car is still their primary mode of travel. So we wanted to show you the proposed future road network. Improvements in the 2051 road network focus on maximizing the benefit to travelers and connecting communities, while still recognizing the region's financial realities for both today and into the future. Our investment decisions were informed by the region's priority setting process, which has been approved by Regional Council and is based on using a sophisticated travel demand model. The proposed 2051 road network prioritizes improvements in the following areas: in the region's most congested corridors, in areas of new development and major employment, and in areas that facilitate access to freeways, regional centers, and rapid transit corridors. In addition to the road improvements, you'll notice that the proposed network also includes building mid-block crossings and missing road links in the network to better connect communities and to provide more options for travel across the region. We've also shown interchanges that we believe are required to support growth, but are considered by the Ministry of Transportation of Ontario to be regional initiatives. We've indicated a number of road rail grade separations, most of which are assumed to be completed by Metrolinx as part of their GO expansion program. And you'll notice we've indicated a few roads that are still under provincial jurisdiction, but that we do anticipate would require improvement to support future growth. So here's just a list of some of the investment opportunities that the region is committed to, but which are outside what's being described on the map so far. These are defined really on a much shorter term annual basis and will result in additional projects in Aurora. Now, the 2022 Transportation Master Plan update also includes 5 focus areas that represent transportation priorities where we still believe there's some extra work required to address key transportation issues. The focus areas are intended to explore opportunities for further study and consultation in order to develop recommendations and action plans that we plan to bring forward to Regional Council for discussion and approval over the next term of council. These focus areas will replace the many specific transportation policies which were included in the 2016 TMP. So I'll just go over in a bit more detail the 5 proposed focus areas. The first one is safety for all travelers. And so although safety is always top of mind for our transportation projects and initiatives, the need for a regional plan for traveler safety is one area that we will be exploring in this focus area. Transportation equity is a newer area for us, and this really looks at providing transportation options that fit all lifestyles, financial situations, and abilities. This focus area will explore whether there's an equal opportunity for access to transportation facilities and services for all travelers, and whether or not new policies or initiatives are needed. And then the third one is reducing car travel, especially during the rush hours. This focus area looks at options that will allow travelers who are able and interested to use methods of travel other than by car during the busiest travel times. And then, of course, financial and environmental sustainability is important to ensure that transportation investment decisions are both affordable and consider environmental impacts. One particular action that we've been talking about at the staff level has been to think about enhancing the region's priority setting process by including evaluation factors such as greenhouse gas emissions and best value for money. And then our last area of focus is reviewing the role and function of regional corridors. And it's intended to explore a number of important actions, including reviewing the ownership and maintenance of cycling facilities and street lighting, identifying the best way to safely accommodate walking, cycling, and newer options such as e-scooters and e-bikes along regional roads, evaluating the effectiveness of HOV and transit lanes, and whether or not the current 6-lane policy needs to be updated, and determining whether the region needs more standardized approach to parking on streets, and then how and where parking on regional roads may be permitted. And then another area that we're thinking about as part of this focus area to prioritize is just looking at assessing the impact of larger trucks on regional roads, and recognizing that there's a strong need to balance the movement of goods and services across the region, and mitigate negative impacts on our communities. So the proposed 2051 transportation networks do recognize the region's financial realities. The proposed infrastructure better aligns with our capital spending forecast while still protecting projects outside our capital funding capability. The proposed 2051 networks align with provincial investment plans, such as the Metrolinx 2041 Regional Transportation Plan, and more recent highway planning by the Ministry of Transportation of Ontario, which includes protection for parallel transitway corridors. And the focus areas will highlight key initiatives that align with the TMP objectives and priorities for further study and implementation over the next term of council. And then just to summarize some of our next steps, throughout the fall, you may know that we had shared the draft TMP network and focus areas with regional council, the public, and local staff. Our next steps as we move forward are getting out to as many of the local councils that are interested in having us, like we're doing this evening, and presenting our update on the transportation master plan work to date. And then working towards drafting a report on the TMP that we will be bringing to council in March. And that's where regional council will have an opportunity to consider the draft transportation master plan. We are then aiming to conduct a third and final public information center in the spring, and from there finalizing the draft plan so that we can bring that report to regional council for approval in June. And with that, it wraps up the formal part of our presentation, and we're here to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Ms. Crawford. Council, can I have a motion to receive the presentation? Councillor Kim, seconded by Councillor Gallo. Councillor Gillen, you have a question?
Thank you. Thanks so much for the presentation and the update. I really think it's very thorough, and I enjoyed the detail that you showed. I did have quite a few questions. There are probably some quick answers, but if I may, I know that I've been a pretty big advocate and pretty loud about the connectivity of the cycling programs throughout Aurora. And one of the big ones, and especially when I hear from a lot of the constituents, is that connection from Wellington Street from Yonge to Bathurst. And I did notice on your map, you do have like a future projection of where you want to be, whether it's very grandeur, it seems to be everywhere. So my question to you is, how long do you anticipate that Aurorans will have to wait to have that east to west connectivity from Wellington and Yonge to Bathurst?
Ms. Crawford.
Thank you for you, Mr. Chair. Appreciate that question. That's an area where I know we conducted an environmental assessment a number of years ago, and it's certainly an area that we've been talking to Metrolinx with, as well as Aurora staff, about their expansion of the Barry-Go line network. So I know that there will be some upcoming changes as part of Metrolinx's work in that area. It's not an area that's on our plan at this point in time. Really looking to addressing that, the work that's needed first through the GO expansion project.
Could you add, Councillor, just the cycling network will be built over time, and not all of it is on Some of it will be through development and with actually that area is for developing. We'll likely be looking for potential partnerships. A lot of what we've done in the past is we'd only added second when we widened the regional road, and that section of Wellington is obviously not going to be widened, but we are looking at projects and partnerships where we can add cycle lanes and particularly on the boulevard into existing areas. And so there's federal money available now. So those are projects we'd love to partner with the town on in those areas of interest. So certainly one of our top priorities to fill in those gaps.
Thank you, Mr. Titherington. Councillor Gilliland.
Thank you. And we are speaking about Yonge and Wellington to Bathurst, because I know there's some mention about the GO train, which is a little bit more further east. So so what you're suggesting, it's you don't really have a particular projection, but it's something that's top of mind, is what you're suggesting?
Mr. Titherington.
As to the chair, that's correct. There's no specific timing on that link. And Lauren was referring to the section further east with the metros with the future grade separation. The section of the west would be something we have to work on with town staff, and there is no defined timeline right now.
Councillor Gilliland.
Thank you. And I'm just going to piggyback on kind of a similar question with Bathurst Street, because I know it's been a challenging road, especially for a lot of people that live in the Southwest area with kids going to school at the high school at Carter and the French school there. And as you know, there are limitations to kids getting rides from a bus from a certain distance. So which leaves a lot of students who have no choice but to walk on Bathurst Street to get to school, which is a rather busy school. I don't really see that on this schedule of any upcoming widening or putting a sidewalk. That seems to be of immediate need. And I'd like to see that addressed for the constituents. And I was wondering if you could kind of give me a reason why that isn't something on the 10-year outlook, and can we, and if not, have that sooner moved up, or if not, like, what are we looking at here?
Maybe I can take that one, Lauren, and through the chair. Sidewalks are actually, this is the challenge of our two-tier system, are actually the responsibility of local municipalities, even on regional roads. And traditionally, those sidewalks are delivered when the regional roads are widened. That being said, we have looked at some different strategies. And actually, Bathurst and Richmond Hill is an area where we actually advanced the sidewalk with Richmond Hill for a similar reason on a sort of a road that section of Bathurst that hadn't been widened yet, recognizing that the sidewalk was needed sooner. So there are some road renewal programs. So what Lauren showed you on the map is areas where we're planning to generally widen roads or make major improvements where you're adding curbs and doing storm sewers major work. We're doing some road resurfacing work in that section of Bathurst, and we are looking now to see if there aren't opportunities to partner where there are needs. Again, Bathurst largely is a rural road, but if there is school and there are pedestrian connections, we'd be happy to speak with the town about opportunities to get a sidewalk in there early. And when Bathurst eventually comes to be improved in that area, we just move the sidewalk to its future location. So, but we'd have to coordinate with the town because the funding for sidewalks are actually funded by the town, and then the town is responsible for maintenance. So it's something we have to do together, but certainly if there's a need in an area where people are having to walk on the side of a regional road, and especially a rural section, we'd be happy to chat with the town and see if there's something we can do. Because I'm looking here, we have work on Bathurst planned for 2022, so there's an opportunity there.
Councillor Gilliland.
Great, thank you so much. And a couple more questions. I'm sorry, I'm taking a lot of your time here. Just as some clarity, and I'm sure maybe some people, maybe you guys know the answer to this, but the connection for the rapid transit, I know that obviously it can't go through the middle of Aurora just because we're quite narrow. So if you could just kind of just to make clear for the public, how is the north and south going to connect with that rapid transit? What's the intention?
Yeah, through the chair. So much like if anyone's been through the section of in Richmond Hill at Major Mac and Yonge, and actually the way it is right now is that the rapid ways would be in separate lanes until such part as we get to the part of the town where the right of way is quite narrow, and we're not going to obviously wipe out historical part of downtown Aurora. So the buses just move into mixed traffic the way they are now through Yonge and Wellington. And as we get further north, similar to the section that's in Newmarket, for those who've been on the section up at Yonge and Newlock, Yonge and Davis, the rapid ways sort of merge, buses go into their own lane and they move on. So it's happening in a few areas through the region. It's happening. Planned if we ever do it on Major Mac, through Old Vaughan will be like that as well. So where areas are constrained, buses just move into mixed traffic, and then where there's space, the rapid ways are created.
Councillor Gilliland.
Thank you. I would have thought that maybe there'd be a hybrid of maybe in the center and in some on Industrial Parkway, since it seems to be more of a throughway traffic, kind of no lot of stops, but I'll kind of leave that in your hands. I'm going to bring this up because it's been a bone of contention, I think, for a lot of Aurorians, and I know a lot of councillors around the table as well. The potential interchange, you have located one at St. John's and various other ones, but I'm going to speak on behalf of Aurora. It says potential interchange and for subject for future discussion. So what does that mean?
Mr. Chetherington.
Yeah, through the chair again, the challenge obviously we have is it's a provincial jurisdiction. So the province did do a EA on Highway 404 probably 5 years ago. And the York Region did put in a number of comments and positions, and one was a future interchange at St. John's, as well as completing the interchange at Mulock, which also would help as well, because for those who know, the Mulock interchange only goes to and from the south. So it is on our radar. The challenge, of course, is it's not completely a regional decision. So we are working with the ministry to understand when there might be opportunity, and there's a funding challenge as well. So as the 404 is being widened north and they're adding HOV stretching further north, we will talk to the province, but there's we're trying to weigh those priorities with available funding. So it's on our radar, being protected for. We're collecting money and development charges, and it's just a matter of timing with the province.
Thank you.
Thank you. Just one last question, and I promise I'm done. On your focus, on your focus section number 2, you talk about equity for all for transportation, and I just want to touch a little bit about accessibility. And often I've had conversations with people, and one of the biggest bones of contention is the length of time it takes to get from point A to point B. And I don't know if it's from, going from one specific place to another, almost kind of like a layover, and just the timing. So what would be something for you and I, an able person, to get to may take us, say, 45 minutes, but for them, for that exact same trip, it would take 2 or 3 hours. So you do have that listed as a key focus. So what are you doing differently or working on differently to help alleviate that time to allow people with disabilities to have that travel time reduced?
Mr. Chetherington.
Yeah, so it's a great question. And frankly, the equity area is something I'm very interested in as a transportation professional. I've heard the term and frankly, I'm still learning. And I think the first step in our discussion about equity is I think it's beyond just accessibility, which is something the region's been working on through the AODA work for years. It's really more looking at what are some of the inherent biases that might be in our network, not just for people who have accessibility issues, but it may have issues around lifestyle or income, other elements. So I think our first step is really defining what equity means from we have a diversity policy of the region in a general sense, but what does that mean with respect to our transportation system? And I think we'll find we need to define what those problems are. And I think what you identified will certainly be some of those, is that there are certain people with certain backgrounds and abilities that have a harder challenge on our network, which is sort of a mix of rural and urban in managing our network. But there may be other communities that have accessibility issues or disadvantage in their network. And so we're really, the first step, we define the problem for council, come up with a policy, and then we can dive into what then those solutions would be. So this is a new one for us, and something I'm interested in tackling, because it is something that I don't think we've ever spoken about in a transportation context before. So your question will be sort of down the road, I think, Councillor. I think we've got a few more basic elements of the policy to tackle first.
Thank you, Mr. Chetherington.
Great. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Councillor Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, thank you. It was a good presentation. It's good to see you again. Following on that, because that's one of my points too, and for me, I'm going to link it, transportation equity and getting people to Viva. Those are two of your key points. But I don't know, in my area and in my knowledge, it takes an hour if you live on the west side of Yonge, whether you're north or south of Wellington, and you want to take a York Region bus to the GO station, you're looking at, depending on where you are on the loop, it takes about an hour to do the loop. So if And then with the equity part of that, there are a lot of people who they need to use transit. So the equity really isn't there if you have to wait 40 minutes. If you get on a bus and have to wait 40 minutes to take the GO transit, and even in some cases Viva. And we've put a lot of money into both of those transportation systems. So how can that be improved? It's just not, we have nobody riding the York transit buses from my experience over the years, very, very few. So, why are we even running them?
Mr. Chitherington?
Yeah, and through the chair, a good question, something that comes up, and it certainly has been challenged with the pandemic in terms of our transit ridership. And so one thing YRT has been doing, this is a little more of on the operational side, is introduce the Mobility on Request program, which is more of an on request service. And I know I'm a resident of Aurora myself, and I know that we actually had a trial around the GO station where there was more of almost like an Uber type service that YRT ran in a specific zone around the GO train that was allowing service to the GO train in smaller vehicles, not in a bus. And so something we certainly are working at the region is trying to match service and demand. And of course, the challenge is on many local routes, you just don't get the demand as you do on some of our main lines. I know for myself, I tend to ride my bike or will walk over to Yonge Street to get the Viva line rather than waiting for my local route, which doesn't run nearly as frequently. So I think, there's certainly, we're trying to match service and demand, because transit is very expensive in areas that don't have high demand. But the Mobility on Request, and it's a service that we are expanding, uses smaller buses, and it's more of an on-demand service, is something we're looking to really help offset the cost of transit and reduce empty buses and really have buses where the demand is. So hopefully we'll see more of that going forward. And I said, we're really hoping that some of our studies around GO stations, and Aurora's, we're blessed to have the GO station, and with the GO expansion coming and expanded GO service with 2A all-day service at 15-minute frequencies. We're really hoping that more people look at options to get to GO stations that are not their car. I know many of my neighbors go to the GO station. It's actually not a long bike ride. And so for those who are able, it'd be great to be able to get people to go to the GO train that don't ever actually need their car. We've actually found that in the surveys of the, more than 60% of cars parked at GO stations live within 5 kilometers of the GO station. So we were, a real challenge in the future, how you get people to potentially get to some of these higher order transit without necessarily having to take the car. So something we're working on, Councillor. Don't have a good answer, but we are aware and are trying to adjust our service to meet the changing demands.
Councillor Gardner?
Thank you. And I keep saying it year after year, and I know it's challenging, but it has to be figured out, because why would we want to run empty buses? We're paying a driver. We're creating pollution. So, and what you're saying is there are a lot of people who can walk or bicycle, but then there are a lot of people who can't for disability issues or because they're older or whatever reason. Maybe they're just carrying too many things. Is it mobility on demand or mobility on request?
On request, it's MOR. Yeah. And okay. I can provide. So I'm not in our transit group, but certainly, Councillor, happy to get some information for you on that MOR program with a bit more details. I'm sort of giving you a very high level because it's not sort of my area of expertise, but I can certainly follow up for you.
Thank you. I was just going to comment. It's probably written in stone already, but mobility, using the word mobility, it might mean to a lot of people if you have mobility issues. So the third one is all roads for all modes. And one of them is also a safety. So on the York region roads, where you're going to have the busier traffic, more traffic, is there any thought, and I know it'd be more expensive, but to having a safety barrier of some sort, because I think a lot more people would cycle if they felt safer. I think people just do not feel safe with the line separating their lane from cars.
Mr. Chitherington?
Yeah, so certainly the region has moved in a direction where we recognize that on-street cycling lanes aren't, particularly on regional roads, are not not comfortable and not used. And so our direction going forward is to be moving all of our cycling facilities to be off-road. So whether that's in a we have a number here in Aurora of the called multi-use paths, the shared asphalt surfaces or wider sidewalks or the trail systems, but we are moving to an off-street network, and we are trialing some things in Markham right now where we do have some older on-street bike lanes, looking at putting some delineators in there to try to there's some maintenance challenges, but they're more of those matchsticks that kind of go up that give a bit of a sense of a feel for vehicles of separation. So we are looking at some on-street, but we're moving going forward, all of our cycling facilities will be off-street.
Thank you. And those sticks are also, they're visible to drivers, so it just might make it a little safer. Just for information, I don't know how long you've been with the region, but when Bathurst Street was widened, or council voted against sidewalks. So perhaps short-sighting.
Any additional questions, Councillor Gardner, or is that it?
No, I'm finished. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Kim?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for presenting. My question is regarding the Ride to Go program. A couple of years ago, prior to COVID, I used the service. It was a great service. Can you give us an update as to when things, when traffic picks up and hopefully COVID is behind us or we live with it? Can you give us an update with that Ride to Go program? Is that going to be ongoing? And are you guys planning on increasing the number of cars in that program?
Mr. Titherington?
Thanks for the question. And I'll have to follow up with you, Councillor Kim. We are monitoring the return, and obviously as we ramp our service back up and return to sort of more normal travel levels after some of the lockdowns. But I don't have the specifics on. I know we are expanding the mobility on request program to more areas. It's been quite popular, and particularly in some of the northern 6 communities. I don't have the specifics, so if it's okay, I can follow up. I'll reach out to my transit colleagues and get a more specific update. I just don't want to pass information along that's incorrect.
Councillor Kim?
Sure, thank you. And on your slide presentation, it talks about financial and environmental sustainability. I think we've discussed environmental sustainability at length. And regarding financial sustainability, so for projects like Ride to the Go program or any other programs that YRP has initiated in the past or will in the future, what is the financial threshold that these projects must meet in order to see the light of day from a project perspective? Is there a number or metric that you guys look for before you say go or no go on a project?
Mr. Titherington?
Yeah, challenging question. And each project is sort of specific. Certainly when you're talking about a road project versus a transit project, and our transit projects are, as most know, are subsidized. We do pay more per ride than we receive at the fare box, and YRT does strive for a 40% fare recovery from the fare box in terms of for every dollar we spend, we hope to get 40 cents back, and that's part of what why it's a service. So on those mobility on request, the data was still coming in. I think a lot of it was about ridership, but certainly I can provide as part of that follow-up memo in terms of future stats and get a bit more details on what they're whenever we do pilots, we have some indicators about what the measures of success were. I can still provide a bit more detail. I just don't offhand know what they were using specifically for that program, but our measures from a financial sustainability vary across the region. And at the master plan level, what was really different about this master plan in the past is master plans used to be this sort of draw as many lines in the map as you can fit, and we'll worry about the finances later. And for this master plan, we've actually done that due diligence at the beginning, and we know what we believe are reasonable funding envelopes to spend over time based on our current spending, so that this master plan isn't putting lines in the map that we don't think we can afford. So that's kind of what we talk about in terms of financial sustainability at a master plan level. We're not creating a expectations that we don't think are affordable at reasonable rates to the region. So I hope that helps.
That'll be all. Thank you very much.
Council, any further questions? Seeing none, thank you very much for both of you coming tonight and giving us an update on the Transportation Master Plan. Council, all in favor of receiving the presentation? Carried. We'll now move on to, thank you very much. We'll now move on to delegations this evening. We have three. Our first delegate is Michael White, a resident, regarding the drainage maintenance between Underhill Crescent and Rachewood Court. Mr. White, welcome. Please. Mr. White, welcome. Please state your name, your address, and you have 5 minutes. Sorry, Mr. White. Mr. White,
Thank you. Thank you. You can hear me?
We can.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen. So yes, thank you for receiving my delegation. And as you've accurately said, what I'm here to talk about is drainage between Underhill and Rachewood. And to net it out on this slide, I've been told that it's my responsibility, and I believe that the town should be taking responsibility for this. There's a drainage swale, a retaining wall, and a catch basin behind my property that are on town land. Those items were all installed after my house was built as part of a separate development. That new subdivision grading plan created the drainage situation, which in turn necessitated the retaining wall. The town approved the subdivision plan and signed off after construction was complete. And I bought the house years after the drainage swale, the catch basin, the retaining, after all those items were created. And at the time of purchase, I was given no notification of having an obligation or a responsibility for the maintenance. This is the sequence of events that took place. Our subdivision was built in 1985 as part of the Tamarack subdivision. And that original grading plan had a drainage swale 15 meters south of our lot line on the south side of Underhill on town land. Rachewood was built 4 years later, and the grading plan for Rachewood moved that drainage swale to within 2 meters of the lot line. That swale drains lots, 10 homes from 35 to 27 Underhill and 14 to 22 Rachewood. At the time that swale was created, when the earth moving machinery came in, the owner of 31 Underhill at the time noted the sidewall gradient would destabilize his property, and the retaining wall was installed on, and it runs from 22 Rachewood onto town property to make the grade stable and retain the swale. Apparently the town didn't upgrade the grading plan to reflect the addition of the retaining wall. However, the town did sign a certificate of acceptance on June 12th of 96. We purchased our house in June of 96, about a week later, and unaware of the origins. At the time, we didn't even know about the retaining wall. It was behind our fence. In 2019, the owner of 22 Rachewood brought to my attention that the retaining wall is failing. This is the 1985 grading plan. The lot line is here, and the highlighted item shows the original drainage swale 15 meters away from the lot line. This is the subsequent grading plan for the new subdivision that brought that swale, you can show it here, see it here, right by the lot line to within 2 meters. And this is all in this corner on town property, the catch basin and the swale. So the problem is that the grading plan signed off is while the elevations at the back of my property are essentially as per that plan, that originally plan implied a 34% soil gradient. The actual installed gradient is 59%, and soil engineers advise me that a maximum of 40% is necessary for the soil to be stable and not erode. So the retaining wall is required to maintain that drainage, and it is failing. This is a cross section that gives you an idea of how the swale might have looked as per the original plan. My property is here, town property is over here, and it's a stable gradient. This is what it actually looks like. It's much steeper, and the wall is required to keep the soil from collapsing into the catch basin and eroding the back of my property. Here's an aerial view. Where it says drainage, that's town property. Where the two white arrows meet, that's the catch basin. And the arrows represent the drainage of the various properties that are supported by it. My house is at the pin drop there. This is a picture of the failing retaining wall. You can see that it's starting to lean. This is the catch basin where the drainage comes down to. So the position of town staff, when I brought this to town staff, their position was that the wall was there for the benefit of the property owner, the implication being me, and that it's my responsibility to maintain it. I'm asking that drainage swale, that catch basin serves a public good for a number of residents. The retaining wall was necessary because of the nature of the design and the installation, which the town signed off in accepting the subdivision from the developer. And this was installed after my house and property was developed. And now that it's failing, it jeopardizes the grading at the back of my property, in addition to jeopardizing the proper drainage. So I'm appealing you to overrule that staff decision and direct the town to accept responsibility for repairing and for ongoing maintenance of the catch basin, the drainage swale, and the retaining wall on town property. Thank you. That's my presentation.
Thank you, Mr. White. Council may have a motion to receive the comments of the delegation. Councillor Gardner, Mayor Maracas, any comments of the delegate? Mayor Maracas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to the delegate, Mr. White, thank you very much for coming this evening. I know we've spoken in the past. I just wanted to thank you for coming this evening, and then just let council know that I'll be asking under new business, Mr. Chair, with indulgence of my colleagues, to have staff come back with a report on this for us at a future council meeting.
Thank you. Is that all, Mayor Maracas? Councillor Gardner?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I was also going to make a motion, so I'd be glad to second the mayor's. Mr. White, when we spoke, I think you said that this wasn't an urgent problem, but from the picture you showed, with the retaining wall is already starting to be compromised. So would you say this is something that needs to be looked after fairly quickly?
I would certainly like to see it through the chair. I'd like to see it addressed as soon as possible, like this summer, if possible. It might last 2 more years. I don't have a crystal ball on that, but thank you for that question, Councillor Gardner.
Thank you. It is worrisome, and I'm sure that we all have enough to worry about. We don't need to worry about retaining wall as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Humphreys.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mr. White, for sharing that with us this evening. It's the first I think I've heard of it. I just had a question for you. Did you not even realize, like, because of your yard and the fencing, that there was a drainage back there? I mean, I wouldn't know how you would know unless you hopped the fence, I guess.
Exactly.
Yeah, I
yes.
just wanted to clarify that. So you didn't have any idea that that was there?
Through the chair, Councillor Humphreys, I did not know that there was a retaining wall or a drainage situation when we purchased the property.
Right.
I mean,
okay.
shortly after we were able to access behind there and discovered it, but it didn't mean much to me at the time.
No, sure. No, thank you very much. And I appreciate as well the mayor's motion for this evening to get a report to staff, to council from staff. So we understand the full, I guess, the issues and get to this resolved quickly, because it does need to be looked at for sure. So thank you very much for delegating this evening, and appreciate the background. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. White, just to clarify, typically when requests are made by delegates, we deal with it at the end of the meeting under new business. And so I take it from Mayor Maracas that he'll put forward a motion. It sounds like some members of council are supportive of it, but you're welcome to stay to the very end to watch the outcome, or I'm sure staff will be in contact with you to let you know. Councillor Gallo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to clarify correctly that the retaining wall was built by the previous owner. Was it in connection with the swimming pool, or they're not related?
Mr. White?
Through you, Mr. Chair, Councillor Gallo, I don't know who built the retaining wall. I don't think it was my previous owner. I'm guessing it was the developer of the new subdivision behind my property.
Councillor Gallo?
Okay, we'll try to get that answer from staff once it comes back to us. Thank you.
Okay. Any further questions of the delegate? Councillor Gardner.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. It's just a comment. Mr. White, I don't believe I've ever seen a single delegate come forward with so much excellent information to share with council. So I want to thank you for that, because it just makes it easier for us.
Thank you, Mr. White.
Thank you.
See no further questions. All those in favor of receiving the delegates' comments? Carried. Thank you, Mr. White. And like I said, you're welcome to stay to the end of the meeting. Otherwise, I'm sure staff will inform you of the outcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll now move on to our second delegation. This evening, we have Fiona Durant, Sharuti Sherrard, and Rebecca Murdoch, representing the Aurora Black Community Association. Like I said, you're welcome to stay to the end of the meeting. Otherwise, I'm sure staff will inform you of the outcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll now move on to our second delegation. Mr. Rand, I'd suggest you turn off the other screen. Otherwise, we're getting an echo. Go ahead if you'd like. Please state your name and you have 5 minutes.
Thank you so much. Good evening again. Haven't seen you guys for a long time. Anyway, so today I don't really have much to say. I just want to follow up because we did send in a delegation on and a budget request for some support for Black history. That was done on November 14th. It was referred to staff, and staff was supposed to get back to us. Staff did send the message back to us. I won't ask anyone to raise hand to say who looked at our report that was submitted for a 1-year report submitted to you by ABC. And I won't even ask who looked at what staff sent out. So my ask tonight is, can I please ask council to pass, or I don't know the term, to pass a motion or call something in so we can ask for some financial support that is in place. So when Black History Month is coming, or programs that we're going to do, we're not scrambling at the end of the or in middle January asking what can the town do. So if any question need for further clarification, please let me know, but I know some report was sent in. So basically that is my ask.
Thank you, Mr. Rant. Can I have a motion to receive the comments of the delegate? Councillor Humphreys, Councillor Gilliland, any questions? Councillor Humphreys.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you so much, Fiona, for delegating this evening. And I think I owe you an apology, or just in terms of you did delegate, and I think what needed to happen, and this is all processes and procedures, that a motion was supposed to come forward somehow from one of us. So that we could have that discussion at budget time and then have a line item. And, this council could decide, is that something we want to do every year? Next year, what do we, so on and so forth. So what we'll do is go back and take a look at that. And unfortunately, due to timing, looks like we need to think about that for next year. However, I hope this year you get some support through, I believe, an initiative. There's a sponsorship opportunity, I believe, that I know staff's looking after for you. I hope that goes through, or somehow that follows through. But I need to apologize because I know that really is a council initiative. It should have been done. And I missed that. I know you delegated that evening. You did a great job with Ms. Murdoch, and there was someone else as well. So that's a miss on our part, and that's something we could think about for the future for sure. I don't know if I'm speaking out of turn. That's just my comments.
Thank you, Councillor Humphreys. Any other questions for the delegate? Seeing none. Oh, Councillor Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would just like to congratulate Ms. Durant on the work she's done, and the very impressive speech she gave today at the flag raising.
Councillor Gardner, we're losing you.
Okay,
You're back.
I'm back. Thanks to Mr. Ront. Thanks for the great speech today. And I think gratefully that you have raised some funds for this year. So hopefully you'll be okay with that. Thank you for the community for coming forward. And as Councillor Humphrey says, we all miss that. So our apologies for not making a motion.
Thank you, Councillor Gardner. Any further questions of the delegate? Seeing none. All those in favor? Opposed? None. That carries. Thank you, Mr. Rant.
Thank you so much. Have a good night.
Our next delegate this evening is Mr. Don Givens, President of Malone Given Parsons. He's representing TFP Aurora Development Inc. with respect to item 9.2, the application for site plan approval. Mr. Givens, please state your name and a reminder, you have 5 minutes. I think the clerk is just confirming that Mr. Givens is here. There he is. Mr. Givens, if you're ready, you can go ahead. When are we getting back to live meetings? Mr. Givens, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
We can. Please go ahead. And reminder, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. You have a report on the site plan application that my clients have made. Yes?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you very much. You have a report from your staff recommending approval for the site plan application that my clients have made. How did this happen?
I'm sorry, Mr. Givens, you're breaking up. We're just hearing you intermittently. Perhaps another member of the delegation could take over for Mr. Givens. Mr. Stewart?
Absolutely. And I think what Don was trying to confirm is that you've got a report in front of you. We've read the report, and we are supportive of the report. We're in agreement with the recommendations of staff, and our intention was to provide a presentation of the project, just an overview within the 5-minute time limit. So I can do that for you. If you want to go to the next slide. So this is the approved draft plan of subdivision. This subdivision was approved by council last June, and the application that is before us tonight really implements the approved draft plan of subdivision. The road pattern has not changed. This is essentially a site plan application for the 2 blocks, one on the east side of Mavernack and one on the west side of Mavernack on the north side of Wellington Street. Is there anybody there that can use a cursor on this? I don't think you can see my cursor, correct?
We can.
Yep.
Yeah, you can see that cursor?
Yep.
Oh, okay. So these lots here, single detached lots, they are not part of this application. They were approved as part of the draft plan of subdivision. The townhouses, which on the west block in this location, there are 3 types of townhouses. We have the double front townhouses, which front Mavernack and Wellington. And these are to provide an aesthetic streetscape without driveways and front doors to the street. We also have what we call traditional townhouses, front loaded, which are internal to the block in that location there and up on the north side. And internal to the block in blue are the back-to-back townhouses. Okay, so this project Similar lot types are on the east block. And so this project is intended to provide a wide range of housing. We've got a wide range of townhouses and the singles in the subdivision. And then over on the east block, we also have a future development, which is shown as block 62, I believe, 67, sorry, which is a seniors housing block, which is not part of this application. There will be a specific site plan application coming forward for that block in the future. So this is a more detailed look at the housing types. One thing I did not mention is that down in the southwest corner of the townhouses, there is a single detached unit there, which will be part of this condominium development. So the townhouses will be developed by plan of condominium, and there will be one single detached unit there as part of the condominium project. Okay, so in total, sorry, you can go back just one sec. We have 210 units in total, including that one single detached unit, which will be developed by a common element condominium project. Next slide, please. So here's a view from the south, looking at Wellington and Mavronack, looking northwest, and that is an indication of the type of housing that we are proposing. You can see those are the double front townhouses with the front doors onto Wellington and onto Mavronack. Driveways are in the back. We can go to the next slide. Similar on the east side of Mavronack, we can see we penciled in there where the seniors residence will be at this time, but as I said, it's not part of the application. And you can get a look at what the townhouses will look like on the east block facing Wellington in that location. Next slide. And these are the streetscape drawings. The townhouses are quality townhouses with a mix of materials with brick, stone accents, hardy board type wood treatment. So we've worked very hard on these elevation drawings, and they're high end, intended to really a quality project. These have all been reviewed and approved by the town's architectural control architect. So this project is ready to go. I think if you've been out there recently, you see that earthworks has already commenced, and we're hoping to start construction sometime this summer on the houses.
Mr. Stewart, your 5 minutes is up. If you can just summarize if there's any other additional points.
Okay. Apologize, I wasn't prepared for this, but is there another drawing? Is there another slide? Okay, so we have more detailed looks. You can run through these. These are images of the elevations. If you can go to the next one, and we have elevations for each type of unit. We have two parkettes, which will have play structures for children, and also seating areas for the community, and also facilities for the seniors, which is this particular parkette is adjacent to the seniors block too. Next slide. So that's it. In summary, we're here tonight to answer any questions that you might have for the project. And that's our presentation for this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Stewart. May I have a motion to receive and refer the comments of the delegation to item 9.2? Councillor Gillen, Councillor Kim, are there any questions? Councillor Gardner.
Thank you. Thank you for stepping in. On the first screen that you're showing, if you Can we go back to that first screen? Which is really a street view. So, and there is one other one. Don't think this is the one I mean, but it will do. It looks like the land is flat. You've got you've got Wellington, you've got a sidewalk, you've got a green spot. Is that land flat there going into that subdivision?
The land has a gentle slope from north to south. So no, it's not flat. Mavronack itself has a slope, but it will be engineered that the front doors will it will appear the way you see it generally. But yes, there is a slope to the property generally from the north to the south.
Mr. Gardner.
Thank you. So will the townhouses on Wellington, will they appear taller than they actually are?
Mr. Stewart.
Through you, Mr. Chair, no, I don't believe they will appear taller than they are, no.
Okay, thank you. According to the report, and I know that you did put a path, I suppose, from the subdivision to Wellington on the southeast part of the development.
Yes.
On the southwest part of the development, the sidewalk was extended to the parquet, but it was not extended to Wellington. And there is a comment that we would prefer that because, well, we just prefer that, obviously, to have another place for people to exit from the subdivision. Why couldn't you do that? Why couldn't you do that?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, that was looked at extensively. The grading from the subdivision to Wellington Street at the west side of the west block was fairly severe. In the vicinity of that single detached block that I was referring to, there is a retaining wall in there to address the grading at that location. And that's the location where we were trying to bring a walkway out to Wellington. It wasn't feasible from an engineering standpoint. And the other reason why we looked at that and thought, you know what, the need to get to Wellington is really to go to Wellington and Mavronack, where there may be transit opportunities. So we did provide an access indirectly to Wellington through Mavronack. So there is a walkway from the internal road right in that location there to Mavronack, and then it's a short walk down to Wellington Street.
Councilor Gardner.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I was just checking the report. It said there's it doesn't conform to what is required. It says there's a problem with it's a zoning non-conformity for the end unit townhouse. So
sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I'm just, if you could explain that, please.
Yeah, no, there is no conflict with zoning with the plan that as it is proposed. We comply 100% with zoning. What that comment refers to is we were requested to add some additional walkways and crosswalks, which we were able to do in all but one circumstance, and that's where the cursor is right now. At the corner, that's block 22. At the corner of block 22, we were looking at extending that sidewalk. If you can move the cursor to the north, yes, and down to the park. Unfortunately, in that location, there is a zoning problem if that sidewalk went there, because the sidewalk would be common element condominium use, which you would look at that as not owned by the homeowner, and so the setback right now is designed to the limit of the roadway, and if we install the sidewalk in there, Number one, it would not comply with zoning. And number two, we would lose that nice corner wraparound porch, which is something that is an architectural element that is throughout the community. And the alternative is really just to, if you can go to where that sidewalk terminates right now with the cursor, no, up north. Okay, so to get south, you would simply have to cross the road, go south on that sidewalk, and there's a pedestrian walkway right there. And these are, these are private driveways. There's not, the traffic volume is minimal, and that's a very reasonable solution. Alternatively, you would have a sidewalk on both sides of a private driveway, which is, well, I've never seen that in my experience, having sidewalk on both sides of the street, of that type of street.
I agree. That just doesn't work at all. Thank you for that very complex answer.
Thank you, Councilor Gardner. Council, any further questions? Seeing none. Thank you, Mr. Stewart and Mr. Givens. All those in favor? Motion carries. Next up, we have the consent agenda. We just have the one item, which is the Lake Simcoe Conservation Authority report. May I have a motion to receive the agenda 7.1 item? Moved by Councilor Gardner, seconded by Councilor Gilliland. Councilor Gardner, any comments with respect to this particular one?
Thank you. One of the items on the report deals with Regulation 6-21 of the Conservation Authorities Act, and it's requiring a transition plan for conservation authorities. And that is to do with the programs and services that they offer now, and they're being asked to transition to decide what's in their core mandate, according to the new regulation, and what would be offered as additions to the municipalities. So I expect in the near future, certainly way before budget, we'll be getting a report that tells us what the core services are and what we would have to pay extra for as municipalities. And there will be some changes, and we'll have to make some decisions. And I can't tell you what they are yet because I'm not sure, and the clerk hasn't received any information on that other than the schedule. So that's to come, but we should expect some changes with the services that Lake Simcoe has been including as the package for municipalities. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Gardner. Any additional comments or questions? Mayor Maracus.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to, I guess, Councilor Gardner as our representative on Lake Simcoe. Councilor, I just noticed that in the report, it speaks to the purchasing policy and the delegated authority to the Chief Administrative Officer. And I'm wondering maybe if you can just give us a little bit of comment of what the comments were around the table and why the authority was given to the CAO.
From what I remember, no, this was it's not that long ago. It's only a month ago. It seems ages ago. I don't think there were any concerns delegating. Their budget is very, very small and almost tiny compared to what municipalities are, at least what we hold. So I don't think that there were any problems. The amounts are much lower, many less projects and much lower amounts.
Maracus.
Thank you, Councilor Gardner. And yeah, maybe I'll just sit down with you and go through it. We didn't get a chance to chat about it. But yeah, because I'm just looking at the increase of the threshold for the CAO from 100,000 to 200,000 for standard procurement. It sounds very similar to some of the municipalities. So I mean, I'll sit down with you and have a discussion about it just to get a better sense. So thank you.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Seeing none, all those in favor of receiving for information? Carried. Next, we move on to the advisory committee meeting minutes. May I have a motion to receive the advisory committee meetings 8.1 to 8.3? Councillor Kim, Councillor Humphries. Any comments or questions on any one of those three items? Seeing none, all those in favor? Carried. Next, we'll move on to consideration of items requiring discussion. We have 5 items on the agenda this evening. Council, if I can make a suggestion, perhaps we could move the application for site plan approval 9.2 forward and deal with that first, since we did have a delegation. Can I get a motion? Councillor Kim, second. Councillor Gardner, all those in favor of bringing it forward? Thank you very much. So we have 9.2, which is the application for site plan approval. Would somebody like to move the staff recommendation? Councillor Kim, do I have a seconder? Councillor Gilliland. Thank you very much. Staff have put it on. Just as a reminder, as was indicated in the presentation, this site plan approval is specific to the townhouse units. It does not speak to the seniors residence, nor does it speak to the single family homes. So if we could just focus the questions, if there are any, with specifics to the townhouse units. Having said that, Councillor Gallo.
Thank you. And for you to, I'm not sure who, but my question is in recommendation 2I and recommendation 3, there's reference to the first one, the satisfaction of the director of planning, and in recommendation 3, it speaks to delegating to the director of planning. And as we know, we don't have one, we have an interim. That's also fairly new. I guess my question maybe to Doug, are we, at what stage are we in the search for a new director of planning, as we all know, somewhat of a short notice that David left us. So I'm a little worried that we're delegating to a position that is an interim position, and they may not have the experience necessary to make those decisions.
Mr. Nadarosny.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we're advancing that right now, so we hope to have someone in that seat before too long. And in the interim, we're confident in our planning staff that they would be able to assist Ms. House, who's the acting director, and we would bring in any other resources we needed.
Councillor Gallo.
We have a sense, maybe from planning staff, of when those decisions will be made, specifically, that that all outstanding comments and requirements from town and external agencies be addressed to the satisfaction of the director, and then 3, that we're giving delegated authority regarding the draft plan of condominium. Are those, do we see those decisions being made rather quickly, and perhaps even before we hire a new director of planning?
Mr. Nadarosny.
Through you, Mr. Chair, no, it's not likely to happen that quickly. I'm sure that we're looking at a period of months, not weeks.
Councillor Gallo.
Okay, well, I mean, I'm concerned about it, and I guess the best scenario is that we have someone in place that can quickly review and provide the direction needed to satisfy those recommendations.
Thank you, Councillor Gallo. Any additional questions or comments with respect to the report? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion carries. We will go back to 9.1, the SARC Gymnasium Edition. We now have a presentation first by Lisa Worth, Manager of Recreation. Ms. Worth, take it away.
Thank you. Good evening. Just going to share my screen here. Pick up this presentation. There we go. So obviously here to talk about the SARC Gymnasium Edition, give you a bit of a project update and where we're at. So this edition, this space was recommended in the Parks and Rec Master Plan in 2016. It was recommended that an additional municipally run gymnasium would be an asset to the community. So during the 2021 budget deliberations, Council did approve the construction of a single gymnasium with some multi-purpose space, administration space, and some storage space, those ancillary spaces, those types of things. The budget at that time was 8.2 million. And also at that time, Council directed staff to ensure that we did community consultation. So we started the process to secure the consultant, the design consultant, and landed on CS&P Architects. Through the procurement process. They were awarded the contract. They have extensive experience in in gymnasiums in general, both municipal, institutional, and other buildings. And work began in earnest in November 2021. So one of the first things we did, actually, sorry, I'm going to show you the existing site. So the gym is slated to go in this space here as an addition to the SARC. So this is the pool here. These are the arenas here, parking lots. Wellington is down over here. And then just as a perspective as to how the gym would fit to the current interior of the building, it's this space here. So again, this is the pool. These are the pool change rooms, some storage rooms. This is the existing administration customer service space. And this is the preschool toddler room, excuse me, where we run our preschool toddler programs, and then our two arenas up in here. So we talked a lot about the corridor and the access to this gymnasium within the building. This corridor here, this existing pool corridor, is a fire rated corridor. It's also a load bearing wall. So we decided that it probably would be prudent to have, for the gym to have its own corridor. Otherwise it would require potentially lengthy closures to other parts of the building and would have definitely affect the operation of the pool. So that's how the gym looks in perspective to the existing building, and also Sport Hall of Fame is up here. So as I was saying, one of the first steps we did was community consultation. Council directed us to do that when the budget was approved. So we held 4 sessions in November and December, virtual, and written surveys were sent to community groups who could not attend the consultation meetings. And we talked about lots of things: the size of the gym, the potential uses, storage, change rooms, parking, access, acoustics, all sorts of things. But one of the main themes that came out was a strong desire for a double gymnasium, as it would allow for formal competition use, particularly with volleyball and basketball. They wouldn't be able to do that in a single gymnasium. They told us that they would not be able to run tournaments and that type of thing with just a single gymnasium. It would allow for a full game, but it wouldn't allow for any type of large tournament use or that sort of thing. And a double gymnasium would also have some of the same purposes as a single gymnasium, including fitness classes and children's programs, summer camps, sports leagues, events such as trade shows and fairs and that type of thing. So the larger space would allow for multiple uses at the same time. And that could be achieved by using a divider wall or curtain, where, I mean, even in a single gymnasium, we would like to see a divider wall or curtain. It could, again, it would allow for multiple uses. If an activity didn't require the use of the entire gymnasium, could be split into two. A double gymnasium could actually be potentially split into 4 spaces with the use of 3 curtains. And we have seen that done in other facilities. So it really allows for a multitude of uses. It can be, 2 different organizations running 2 different activities at the same time. So it creates a lot of flexibility and space. The existing gymnasiums in town, including the schools, most of them are not large enough. They don't have the ceiling height or the spectator space required, again, mainly for those competitions and tournaments. And they are increasingly difficult to access. And what I mean by that is that we're finding that even as staff, because we do book permits in schools and we pay to rent gym space in schools, we often find that we get canceled at the last minute. So the school will call us the same day as we're running a community program in the evening and tell us we don't have our space that night. They will cancel if the buses are canceled because of a snow day. They're automatically canceled even if the roads are fine that evening. And we're also finding they're increasing their fees, both boards, regularly, and it's becoming a little bit prohibitive for some of our community groups. Obviously, we've not been using the schools during COVID. We haven't had a need and haven't been permitted to get into the school gymnasiums during COVID anyway, but that's our experience as staff. And certainly we're hearing the same things from community groups, that it's difficult to plan for a program when you have a permit from the board that says you have it for every Tuesday night at 8 o'clock, but you could get a call on Tuesday afternoon at 3 o'clock and be told you don't have your time that night. And then there's a bit of a scramble to contact participants and make up that class and that type of thing. So we're finding that happening more often as we use these school gymnasiums. I want to talk about sport tourism because the double gymnasium obviously supports the goals in sport tourism. Staff are currently in the process of developing a sport tourism strategy as recommended in the sport plan. And we also did consultation as a part of that process. And some of the groups were the same as the ones who attended the consultation for the gymnasium. But they did tell us that their top concern as it relates to sport tourism was a lack of appropriate facilities for competitions and tournaments. And, just a note that a double gymnasium would be an asset that has the potential to attract a variety of events to the town, and it would allow organizations to bid on and host events and sell Aurora as that destination host for events. Some sport organizations did tell us they're hosting events and tournaments in other communities due to a lack of suitable facilities in Aurora. So given the feedback we received through the community consultation, we felt it was important to explore that option of a double gymnasium a little bit further, and just to make council aware about that's what we heard and what the options are. So we have landed on option 1, which is the single gymnasium that we were originally looking at, and option 2, which is the double. So option 1 is an 8,500 square foot gymnasium with a 24-foot ceiling height, and option 2 is a 16,600 square foot gymnasium with a 30-foot ceiling height. Both options include storage space, change rooms, washrooms, some spectator space, multi-purpose space, and renovations to the existing administration customer service space, as well as that separate corridor I was talking about for access from the lobby. So the single gymnasium on the site looks like this. So you can see that it's oriented north-south. These are storage rooms here. These are change rooms and that type of thing. And this is that corridor that allows access from the lobby. The multi-purpose space that was always part of the project is now showing as an addition to the preschool room, a small addition here. And then the preschool room, there's been some discussion about enhancing it, repurposing it. We still want to be able to use it for preschool, but if we did a little bit of renovation in there, it does make that space much more multi-purpose. So it would include things like a divider curtain. I think it needs some new counters and some furniture and that type of thing. Right now, that room is very much geared to small people, to preschoolers and toddlers. But with some renovations, we can retrofit that room to be more of a multi-purpose space. The renovations to the administration and customer service space are here. So this is generally the existing customer service and administration space. It's all one space together. It would become the administration space for program staff, aquatic staff, that type of thing. And then there's a meeting room at the front of the building that would become the customer service counter or the customer service space. And this space, would make for a much more welcoming center. It allows customer service staff to greet patrons as they're coming in the building instead of having them walk down the hallway to greet them here as they are right now. The other thing I want to bring your attention to are some of these colored lines here because they are important. This whole site sits within the Lake Simcoe Region Conservation Authority. This orange line here is the floodplain setback line. This is the floodplain, the red line, and the purple line is the provincially significant wetlands. There is supposed to be a 30-meter setback from the edge of the building to the wetland. With the single gymnasium, you can see that it doesn't really encroach on the provincially significant wetlands. There's a little bit of encroachment right down here, but we don't expect that to be problematic. So I just wanted to bring your attention to those lines. This next slide just shows you what a typical gym floor layout would look like. This wouldn't change whether it was single or double. If it was double, it would sort of be two of these. So again, we would have divider curtains. We would probably have some lobby viewing. These here are retractable bleachers that hold about 60 people each. And again, through consultation, we heard that that would be more than sufficient, even for a bigger competition or tournament. And then again, I know these lines might look a little bit hard on the eyes, but the black outline is the high school basketball court. The blue is the volleyball, the center volleyball court. The yellow is practice volleyball, so there's two of them there. And gray is practice basketball. So again, you've got those there. Red is badminton, so 3 badminton courts in a single gym. And then white is pickleball. That's very difficult to see, but they're basically within the badminton lines. And it's important that we have runoff for balls as they bounce out of bounds and for safety. So runoff has to be included in the space. So this is how a double gym looks situated in the space. And you can see that it's situated east-west. As opposed to north-south. Obviously it fits better east-west. Again, we've got that separate corridor here. We've got change rooms, washrooms, storage rooms, entrance, bleachers, that type of thing. The administration space, customer service space, and multi-purpose space does not change in either drawing at this point in time. But what is important to note is the encroachment to the provincially sensitive wetland. This is the 30-meter setback. So the double gymnasium, 30 meters is well into the provincially significant wetland. It's that black line there. So there would need to be a number of studies and things that need to happen to see how we would mitigate that encroachment. So as I noted, there are some site fit challenges. The whole site is within the Conservation Authority and encroaches on the setbacks, and consideration would be required to meet the requirements to address the floodplain, the watercourse, and the sensitive wetlands. As I said, the single gym would not pose any significant concerns. There's just that tiny triangle. The double gym does pose some site challenges and would require further study to see how we would mitigate that encroachment and that type of thing. The other consideration with a double gym would be a parking study. We were unsure if there's sufficient parking on the site for peak times, tournaments, that type of thing. We do have quite a bit of parking in the east lot that seems to be empty at most times, but we're not sure if that would be sufficient. And both designs have a significant drop due to sloping. So that would have to be dealt with during design and construction as well. And then this slide just shows you that the entire site is within the Lake Simcoe Conservation Authority floodplain area. The budget for the single gymnasium, which is about 1,500 square feet of new construction, 4,320 square feet of renovated space. That's the administration space and the customer service space. Looking at this point, very high level at about 11.3 million. The double gymnasium is about 2,600 square feet of new construction, same amount of renovated space, 4,320 square feet, with a total budget of 18.8 million. Again, very high level. That 18.8 million does not include any work that might be required as a result of a parking study. If it were deemed that parking wasn't sufficient, there would need to be some work and some extra funding required for the parking. So as I said, we've looked at several options. We thought it was very important for council to be aware of what we heard from the community groups, and we wanted to explore that the option of the double gymnasium a little bit further. Obviously some challenges, but also some benefits. And there is generally a lack of good gymnasium space in Aurora, particularly, as I said, for competition and tournament use. And we felt it was important to consider the results of the consultation before proceeding any further. And again, a new gymnasium of any size will be very well used by the community and for town uses. As I said, we are, we're using school gymnasiums at this point, and the AFLC gym is very well utilized during peak times. I know that permits are getting turned away. People are making inquiries, trying to book that gym. And even within my own team on recreation, we're juggling that one gym in terms of how we're programming our programs and our offerings to the community. And we're trying to utilize every moment. And again, there is obviously a higher demand during prime time, which is sort of, early evening, after school, and weekends, and even early morning. So we do know, that there is definitely a demand for a new gymnasium space. It will again allow the town and community groups to increase our offerings and to increase our programs and hopefully we would see more community participation because we have the space for people to come and participate. So that concludes the presentation. I'm happy to take any questions. Do my best.
Thank you, Ms. Worth. If I could, as we typically do, put the presentation as well, the report as well as the presentation on the floor. Would somebody care to move the staff recommendation? All right. Mr. Clerk, if I could just see everybody. There. Would somebody care to remove the staff recommendation? Councillor Humphreys, seconded. Mayor Marakis. Mayor Marakis, you can lead us off.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Ms. Worth, thank you very much for the presentation and the update on what's happening in regards to this. Ultimately, the way I look at this is that, with the encroachment to the provincially significant wetlands, I just don't see option 2 as a viable option. Even though it's we know that it would be needed. It's in demand. We know it's something that our organizations, our sporting organizations would definitely be able to utilize. It would attract from a sports tourism perspective. But I just don't think that the site is a viable site for a 2 gymnasium, especially when it's encroaching into that provincially significant wetland. So I think option 1 is still the course that we should continue on. And ultimately, I think that that's the decision that we're making here tonight. Is it 1 gymnasium or 2 gymnasiums? We've already paid for the design, and I would like to see that final design, and I would like to see the updated cost estimates. And when we get that back, then we can have I think a nice discussion and decide is there value to the community and to the residents in proceeding forward to a tender at that point. But I think ultimately what we're deciding tonight, are we best to continue through the course with that option 1 with the 1 gymnasium, or do we change course and look at the 2? I still think that we continue with the 1 because I think that there's some issues and problems with the site to do a 2 gymnasium. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Gallo.
Chair, could someone just go over the increase in budget with me? There's a $3 million increase from our original estimate of 8.2 million. It's now at 11.3 million. Does that have anything to do with the renovation of the additional spaces? And secondly, those renovations of additional spaces, are those directly linked to the addition of a gymnasium?
Ms. McDougall or Ms. Worth would like to answer that. Ms. McDougall.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. Certainly, these are questions that we are challenging the consultant as well as we proceed with the goal and the direction of council back during budget to consider additional programming space and consideration of administration. We had a look at what the site could accommodate based on meeting the needs of an appropriate size, even a high school gym, as well as having those opportunities for programming. And so instead of trying to increase just the footprint next to and including in the footprint where the gymnasium space was, which would be a full new build, we looked at trying to renovate existing spaces, obviously to keep costs down. We feel that there's more efficient uses of what we're proposing today. And so to be honest, it's a bit of, the cost has gone up, but it's more, I think, about the cost and prices of today versus even what they were a year and a half ago. Keeping in mind, though, these are very, very high level, and even our consultants is cautious with the share of the values, because they know we still have to go through a full cost analysis, the detailed design, detailed drawings. So for the benefit of at least a conversation, they utilize round figures of a certain value per square foot of $500 per square feet for new, and approximately $200 a square foot for renovation. So the fact we're renovating spaces in one way kept costs down. You could argue, but recognizing that the budget is higher than what was presented to council about 18 months ago, just less than 18 months ago. So I think it's more about where we are today, but also recognizing it's a very high estimate right now, high level estimate, meaning we do intend part of the return to council would be vetting it through proper detailed design and coming back with a Class A estimate, which is much more refined to give you a better, truer picture at the time of your formal decision.
Councillor Gallo?
So we're not exactly sure if that $3 million was necessarily the renovations. Part of it is that, part of it is an increased cost towards the actual gymnasium from a year and a half ago. Is that a pretty good summary?
Ms. McDougall?
Sorry, through you, Mr. Chair. Certainly, to piecemeal it like that would be a little difficult because that's not how the package is. The package was done based on the design of multi-purpose space, a gymnasium, and admin space. So to separate it out, ultimately we see it as a bit of a cost savings to do renovation versus new square footage. If we'd put all those, what council wanted us to do regarding considerations of multi-purpose space, potentially renovation or new admin space considerations, and just put them all as new, the price today would be even higher.
Councillor Gallo?
I'll review the previous, I guess, report. I just don't remember the discussion about this, especially renovating, customer service spaces and all of that. I get if we're adding a room on the west side, there's some cost to that. I generally speaking, I have issues with these types of the way we move forward on these types of projects. Do we have a sense of what we spoke through you, Mr. Chair, what we've spent so far through you, Mr. Chair?
Ms. McDougall?
Sorry, through you, Mr. Chair, I'd have to look back at the actual consulting award for CS&P, but their full scope of work, and we're only a small percentage through that. That's why we took a pause today. They have not done any more work at the time of preparing this report, with the goal that we get this final direction and confirmation that we're on the right path of completing the single gymnasium design. They were hired for doing the single gymnasium design, but through the consultation, it resulted in this double gymnasium evaluation. They've not charged us anymore. So I'd have to go back in my notes, and I could certainly get you that information before council meeting.
That's fine, Mr. Chair, through you. If I can just get two things. First off, what we've spent up to now, and secondly, if this moves forward and it comes back to us as being directed with option one and a full design and a cost estimate tender to what that would cost. So the next time we see this, if we move forward, how much have we spent? To me, that's helpful because while I think this project is going to move forward anyway, probably regardless of the price, at least I'd like to know when I'm making that final decision, how much we've spent in order to decide whether to move forward or not, if it does come back at some ridiculous cost and for some reason we say no. That would be helpful to me. Also, just to confirm, we budgeted 8.2. However, we've also gotten a debt authority of another 8.2 million. Is that correct?
Ms. McDougall?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, I do believe, but Mr. Gardner, I believe, is on the call today that can maybe confirm that for you. But yes, I do believe there was a debt authority approval and request for the value of 8.2. So in essence, there would have to be a revised funding strategy when we were to come back for final approval before tendering.
Mr. Gardner, can you confirm?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair, I can confirm that we did acquire $8.2 million in debt authority as an interim funding solution for this project. And as Robin mentioned, should the total budget authority in this project increase, we would have to revise that debt authority and interim debt financing accordingly.
Thank you. Councillor Keller?
For you, Mr. Chair, just to be clear, we have budgeted 8.2 million from Parks and Rec development charges, and we have 8.2 million in debt authority for this project. Is that right, or am I double dipping there?
Mr. Gardner, are you able to answer that?
That's correct. We have a total of $8.2 million in debt financing, and that essentially is meant to provide an interim gap for us to collect the 8.2 million in DCs that will ultimately fund the debt. So we're talking 8.2. Bottom line, we're talking $8.2 million is available for this project right now. Does that answer your question, Mr. Gallo?
So I was double dipping. It's not 16.4 that we've put aside for this project.
No, I believe Mr. Gardner can confirm, but I believe what he's saying is it's debt authority, but then the DCs would be used to pay off the debt authority. But Mr. Gardner, can you confirm?
Through you, Mr. Chair, that's correct.
Thank you.
And do we have a balance on the Parks and Rec development charges fund count?
Mr. Gardner?
Presently, it's about, as per the recent DC Act changes, we combined our outdoor recreation DCs with our indoor recreation DCs. Combined, it's now Parks and Recreation DCs net balance. It's at about 2.3 million. However, we've got something like $30 million of commitments against that already. So there's not a whole lot of money left to go around from a development charge standpoint.
Councilor Gallo?
Right, I missed that last part. We have some debt allocated to it.
Yeah. So currently we have a balance of $2.3 million in development charges that we have collected to date. However, we do have previous approved commitments against that money for other projects to the tune of pretty close to $30 million, which will be expended over a 20-year time period for various projects like the Hallmark baseball diamonds and the Library Square, or sorry, the Aurora Town Square, and some other big projects of that nature.
Councilor Gallo?
So am I to assume that the reason we put this project under the Parks and Rec development charges is not because we have the money that we're going to pay out of that, because we don't, and not for a long time we won't have it. We'll be using debt financing. That seems to be pretty clear. Is more strategically so that when we redo development charges, that at least it's allocated to that. Would that be fair?
Mr. Gardner?
Through you, Mr. Chair, in our present 2019 development charge study, we have allocated a total of $9.5 million for a gymnasium. So we are planning to collect $9.5 million in development charges, Parks and Recreation development charges for a gymnasium. So that's been considered in our longer term plan.
Councilor Gallo?
I think that's what I was getting at, that we're not doing it because we have the money in that account and we're going to be spending it out of that account. It's more from a strategic point of view, from development charges strategy, that we can collect that from development charges. If we didn't do that, then we wouldn't be able to collect that from future development charges.
Sorry, is that a question or comment, Councilor Gallo?
Just a confirmation that's
Councilor Gardner. Councilor Jason, Mr. Gardner?
Through you, Mr. Chair, that's correct, John. We expect to collect those development charges over a 10-year period. So we're financing it over a sufficient period of time to allow us to collect those future development charges.
Councilor Gallo?
Thank you. I mean, I don't know about the rest of you, but it's worrisome to me. That account is under $30 million in debt, and we keep borrowing for these projects, and I suspect it's going to end up well over the 8.2 that we've budgeted, and well, it's already 3 million. It's already over 11 million So those are my comments.
Councillor Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Two questions to staff. One is with respect for the single gym. It is encroaching, a small encroachment into the provincially significant wetland. Why do we think that won't be a problem? Will we have to get approval from the province for that?
Ms. Worth or Ms. McDougall? Ms. McDougall.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. We have had conversations with LSRCA as we've done some preliminary investigations on where even the single gym would land. Based on those conversations, even though it encroaches a minimal amount, the conversations we've had is feedback we've had from staff is that it would not be a significant concern. It would be certainly manageable. They do not see it as a significant mitigation requirement. The double gym is a different matter, and we would need further assessment. But the feedback we've had is based on LSRCA's conversation.
Thank you. And with respect to mitigation, that would be an extra cost, I'm assuming.
Ms. McDougall.
Through Mr. Chair, yes, it'd be an extra, but we have included in our budget scope of work site preparations. So depending on what is required, we may already have captured. There is a portion in that budget that includes site restoration, site preparations. So we may have enough already there.
Councillor Gardner.
Thank you. I'm uncomfortable with any encroachment. The second question is, did we consider building up for the second gym?
Ms. McDougall.
Thank you, through Mr. Chair. As you may recall, back when I presented this consideration, there was a two-tiered double gymnasium model presented to council. This was compared and provided to CSMP as an option. That's just based on costs. The mitigation there was to do it side by side versus going up. It is a much more significant cost to go up. So even back, if I just to refresh, back when I presented and we went for the 8.2 million for a single, the two-tier was 22.6. So considering the transitioner period today, knowing that the other version went up, I anticipate even the two-tiered would have gone up even higher. So it was CSMP's recommendation to stay side by side.
Thank you. Thank you. I do remember that now. I also remember being surprised because I've always heard with building it's cheaper to go up. But I guess in the case of a gym, that's not true. That's all for now.
Thank you. Councillor Kim.
Just want to remind everyone that the current SARC was also debt financed, and we're still paying that off. And but I mean, that's the normal course of how municipalities finance these facilities. So this is nothing new. Through you, Mr. Chair, to Ms. Worth, why would the I think I understand, but can you clarify why a single gym would have a 24-foot height and why a double gymnasium will have a 30-foot height, please?
Ms. Worth.
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. The 30-foot height is required for competition for certain sports. So where a couple of sports told us they would not use a single gym for competition or tournament, there's no need to build that ceiling so high. If we were going to do a double gym and it would be used for competition or tournament, it does need to be that high. So a single gym with 24-foot ceiling clearance is fine for basketball and volleyball training and house league games and that type of thing. But if they were to get into competition tournaments, that type of thing, they need that 30-foot clearance. So we would only do that if we were building the double gymnasium.
Okay, thank you. I wasn't sure whether 24 feet would be high enough for volleyball, but if you're saying that it will, it's high enough for volleyball, then I'll believe you. Secondly, I'm a proponent of the single gym option, but if we were to entertain a 2-gym option, how long would it take to investigate with the Conservation Authority and other studies? How long of a delay would that be?
Perhaps Ms. McDougall?
Thank you, through Mr. Chair. Just based on preliminary conversations with the CSMP, anticipating a decision for a double potentially, it definitely would take a pause and a delay. We are anticipating it would take an additional 3 months approximately to have that consultation with LSRCA, and subsequent reports would be required to come back to council based on that feedback. But keeping in mind as well, we would be at the same time, we need to do a parking study. That too would take the inclusive of that time period. We would want that assessment done at the same time.
Councilor Kim?
Thank you. I mean, originally, I was in favor of a 2-gymnasium model for the reasons that Ms. Worth outlined in terms of tournament play and getting sports tourism. But certainly, we have to understand our economic realities as well. So I'll be in support of the single gymnasium option, and that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Gilliland?
Thank you. Most of my questions were answered. I am disappointed that we can't do the double gym, to be quite honest, because I do really feel the tournament play was something that was very, very important, especially to a lot of the organizations in town, and also our sports tourism strategy. I guess my question through to the chair, to Ms. Worth, is, I mean, aside from the single gyms, it sounds like that's probably the avenue or the way we're going to end up going down, just due to parking and wetlands. What other opportunities are in Aurora to facilitate this demand, or are we even going to end up looking towards that? And does this single gym that we build fill, any of our demand? Like, are we getting close to that deficit of the need in the community by building just one, or what is that deficit representation?
Ms. Worth?
Through you, Mr. Chair. That's a difficult question to answer. I don't have a definitive answer, but the gym was recommended already back in 2016 as part of the Parks and Recreation Master Plan. And as I said, we're finding getting access to school gymnasiums is becoming increasingly difficult, because that really is our only option. And I know that we've got a new high school potentially coming on board, and an old one potentially being decommissioned, but we just, we don't know the status of that situation. And again, we don't know the status of what access the community will have to those gymnasiums. I mean, the only remotely sized gymnasiums that would work for sort of tournaments and competitions are those triple high school gymnasiums. And I know we do have a couple in town, but again, they're difficult to get into. They're very expensive for community groups to rent. So the gymnasium deficit, as I was already identified, over 5 years ago now in 2016, and the community has only grown since then, and demand for activities that take place in a gymnasium space has only grown. So that deficit is going to continue to grow, I believe.
Councilor Gilliland?
Thank you. And although maybe you can't answer this question, but who knows? Maybe I'll give it a shot. Do you happen to know that this new high school, it's standard that they would automatically build a triple gym, or is this like, I just don't know if times today that's what they do, or if it's specific from municipality or budgets? Is there a way that you could find that out?
Ms. Worth?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Certainly we could find out. I do not have that information at this time.
Councilor Gilliland?
Thank you. I appreciate that. Well, given the circumstances, I mean, obviously we need the single gym essentially, well, we need 5. So I'm happy to support the single gym. It seems like the double gym is going to be extremely complicated because there's a lot of other barriers like the parking, the wetlands, the land acquisition, and it just doesn't seem like it's going to be in our favor. So perhaps there's additional opportunities somewhere else, but clearly we need to at least fulfill some of the demand in this facility that already has a lot of other things offered for the community. It makes sense to be all in one spot. So I will support moving forward with the recommendation today.
Thank you. Councillor Gardner for the second time.
Thank you. Going back to Councillor Gallo's line of questioning, Mr. Gartner said that we will collect 9.4 NDCs that could go to this gym. I believe that was what you said, Mr. Gartner?
I think he said 9.5 over the next 10 years, but Councillor, Mr. Gartner?
9.5 then?
Through you, Mr. Chair, that's correct, 9.5 we're planning on.
Thank you. So if this did come in around 11 million, then would we ever be collecting another couple of million in DCs that could go to this, or would we be carrying that debt? How would we deal with that extra charge?
Mr. Gardner?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we would have a couple options. We could explore the extra as a post-period benefit and recover it through a future DC study, those additional costs. Some of those costs may not be eligible for DCs, such as the administrative work would not be eligible for DCs. However, we could consider collecting more DCs in future studies to help fund the gym. Other options, of course, are other funding sources. We could certainly explore other funding sources as well.
Thank you. Thank you. I don't know after 20 years, I mean, I'm sure we'll be required to grow, but I don't really know how we would do that and therefore collect the DCs. I'd just like to say, I know there are members of the sports community tuning in tonight, and I know, of course, they would like a double gym. So my apology to them, but as was said, we do have an economic and environmental reality that we do have to deal with, and we would have to for a second gym. And I don't think it's within the range of possibility for the town. So I do apologize for the disappointment that you must have. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gardner. Any other comments or questions? Councillor Gallo for the second time.
Okay, just quickly, 2 points. First off, I won't be voting for this, but that doesn't mean I'm not pro building this type of facility. I just don't think it's the right time. I do not think we should be going into even more debt. And to Councillor Kim's point, we did debt finance the Stark. I think we paid $20 million back then. I was there. I'm not sure if he was. I participated as a resident and shared my views on that project. But at the time, if someone will sure correct me, but we had the SARC and the library as debt financed, and there was nothing else. If there was, it would be very, very minor. In today's day, this council has borrowed, or will be borrowing, if this moves forward, somewhere around $50 million. Never in the history of Aura have we placed this corporation in that much debt in one term. That's somewhere around $800 per resident in this town. So to me, the timing isn't right, as much as I'd love to proceed with it. And I'll make a prediction right now that this is going to be a $15 million project, because that's the history of how things grow, capital projects grow in this town. We start off at 6, 7, 8. The JCC started at $6 million, believe it or not, and ended up at 30. So I won't be supporting this.
Thank you, Councillor Gow. Mayor Marakis for the second time.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I just wanted to reiterate in regards to, as it was alluded to back when the SARC was built, there was a gymnasium proposed for this. And it was, I believe it was it 4 million? Possibly, or maybe, I think it was slightly lower than that. Maybe it was like 3 proposed at the time. If they built it at that, we would be having this conversation right now. It's too bad. It's too bad the council today did not make the decision to do the right thing for the community and build a gymnasium when the time was right. Instead, it's been left to us now with an incredible cost increase. But we have to make these decisions, and we're not making that decision tonight. What we're looking at is that let's get that final design and see if there's absolute value for our community. And that's how we base our decisions on the value for our community, for our residents moving forward. We always have to look to the future. We can't just look 4 years down the road. We have to look 15, 20, 30 years down the road and what our community is going to look like long after any of us are going to be sitting here. And so we got to do what's best for our community.
Thank you. I just have a couple of questions and some comments. You know, I do share the same concerns with regards to the cost and the increases. And I certainly think that as we proceed to the next stage, if that's the will of council, you know, further conversations and details need to be provided for all of us to understand. But, you know, we do recognize that there was a need in 2016. I'm sure the new Parks and Rec Master Plan will reiterate the need. And as we go through our official plan and look at the population increase, it's only going to reinforce the fact that we need that as well. My question through myself, I guess, to Mrs. Worth or Ms. McDougall, in prior reports, whenever we looked at the larger options being a double gym or even going as far back as increasing the pool, the idea of parking was always a concern. And for the most part, it was a little bit more definitive in those previous reports saying that we would need to expand the parking lot and acquire land if we were ever to go beyond that single gym. And now in this report, it seems a little bit more cautious in that respect, saying, well, we just need to do a further parking study to determine whether that's really necessary or not. So I guess my question really is what has changed? In the past, we were a lot more, you know, I guess, you know, decisive with the fact that we were really going to need to expand and buy land to accommodate a larger structure. And now we're saying, well, maybe that's not the case. Through you, Ms. McDougall.
Thank you to you, Chair. I think the observation of a double gymnasium from a consideration of will parking be needed, I think we're sitting here thinking, yes. So we would be guiding you with the same concerns that a double gymnasium based on tournament demands and the occupancy of that current facility and the parking that was provided for the current facility at the time was not considering a gymnasium when they determined the capacity. So at any consideration of a double gymnasium, that reality of parking is likely needed. We want to make sure, if we're to go down that path, that we're not proposing council and endure that added cost or expectation of acquisition if in fact it's not needed. We still think it likely will. But until we do that assessment, we are, I guess today we were presenting it might seem a little cautious, but it is ultimately has to be studied to be verified. That's all.
No, and I appreciate that, but I do think that you're correct in your assessment that the likelihood we would have to do that if council were to move in that direction. My second is really just a request. Within this report, there is a section called previous reports, and it doesn't list any of the previous reports related to our gymnasium discussions. And while I am able to search myself and find many of them, I do think that for the public and maybe other members of council, I think it's important to list all the previous reports. This and one reiteration or not has been discussed for the last 5 years. And you can even go further back if council so wishes to find those reports with regards to the original SARC. But either yourself, Ms. Worth, or Ms. McDougall, perhaps you could circulate to members of council the list of previous reports associated with this so that council should, if they so choose, can read up on it, as well as any future reports come to council, have that section in it so that the public are well informed as well. That's it for my comments. Seeing none others, I will call the vote. All those in favor of the motion on the floor? Opposed? Motion carries. Council, it's 9:15. As per our procedural bylaw, we will now take a 10-minute health break, according to the clerk. I will see everybody back here at 9:25. Thank you. Council, we're going to resume. Item 9.3, the disc golf course update. Would somebody like to move the staff recommendation? Mayor Maracus, seconded by Councillor Humphreys. Any speakers to the report? Mayor Maracus.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I just wanted to thank staff for having those discussions with the Highland Gate ratepayers and the residents in the community in the area, and listening to their comments and their concerns, and coming back with a report that speaks to those concerns and removing the disc golf from the Highland Gate Park. So I just wanted to thank them for having those discussions with the residents in the area.
Thank you. Councillor Gallo, we've put 9.3, the disc golf course update, on the floor. We just moved the motion. And I called to see if anybody has any comments or questions. Seeing nothing further. All those in favor? Carried. We'll move on to 9.4, updates on the use of the corporate resources for election campaign purposes policy. Would somebody care to put the staff recommendation on the floor? Councillor Kim, seconded by. I need a seconder. Councillor Humphreys, thank you. Mayor Maracus, you're first.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And, I was having a discussion with Councillor Gillan and also with Councillor Humphreys, and it came to my attention, one aspect of it within the campaigning general part of the policy. So I'm just going to read 1.1. 1.1 says, no person shall use town resources for campaigning. I think we all know that. And then there was an added item for 1.6, which all of a sudden says candidates and third parties may rent spaces at community centers or parks for campaign purposes, following the standard processes for the permitting of town facilities and at the regular rate established for the rental of the space. That's news to me, and I think it's probably news to all of us. So I think that it's important when you look at all the other clauses that were originally in there. I did also speak with our clerk, but maybe I'll let him explain if he'd like. Mr. Clerk, if you can just explain why that was been added in, and then I'll just continue with my comments through you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Drawn.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you. From what I understand, that it was it may not have been mentioned in the policy or in other policies, but it was always allowed, as someone could rent the facility for campaigning purposes, of course, at full cost. And just through our research, when we were looking at amendments to the policy, it's quite common across the region that that other municipalities do allow this sort of thing. So we thought it'd just be best to codify it within the policy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, and I'll agree to disagree with the clerk on this one, because when you, as I said, when you read through the first 4 or 5 items before the next one, 1.6, that was inserted, all of them speak to the fact that no campaigning basically should occur on any town facility. You have no campaigning signs or material may be displayed in any town-owned or operated facility. And then there is an exclusion when it speaks to the fact that all candidates meetings may be held on a town facility. So there was that exclusion. And so having that exclusion in there, to me, essentially insinuates that you can't rent a town facility as a candidate or a third party only for the purpose of an all candidates meeting. And so I think that we need to remove that clause. Mr. Clerk did offer me up an amendment that I could put forward, that the policy be amended to disallow the rental of any town facility for election campaign purposes. So I'd like to put that forward.
Mayor Maracus, we have other members who have put their hands up. Perhaps we can go around once, and sure, then I'll come back to you. And if at that time you can put that amendment on the floor.
That's fine, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions?
At this point, no.
Councillor Gallo.
Thank you, and maybe I'll weigh in on that one once it comes up. The one that I had an issue with is 1.12, and it's not new. And it says photographs and video produced for and owned by the town may not be used for campaigning. And the only reason I bring that up, other than I disagreed with it when we first put that in, just because there's so much online, and that, if someone wants to direct voters to a particular council meeting to express how we did, I just don't see anything wrong with that, and maybe that is not an issue. But just because we've been online so much for this term, that we haven't had the public in the council chambers. And if anyone did want to videotape us or create any content or video, they weren't able to. So they would have to use the contents on the town's YouTube channel, where all our meetings are broadcast. So I guess first off, my question would be to the clerk. If someone would want to use a clip of a council meeting in their campaigning, is that, based on that clause, not allowed?
Mr. Ron?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I would say based on that clause, that wouldn't be allowed.
And I think that's incorrect, and I don't think we should have that. I don't know what the downfall to that would be. So I'll once we get around, I'll at least take a stab at changing that. That was it for me.
Thank you, Councillor Gallo. Councillor Humphreys.
Actually, through Mr. Chair, I was speaking towards the motion that the mayor may be bringing forward. So that was my only area of concern. So I'll just wait till that comes up. Thanks.
Councillor Humphreys. Councillor Gilliland.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, to the clerk. And I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this because I've had some separate conversations, but I just want to be clear on the members and councils and candidates on section 4 on the 5th page of the report. You have a section there on social media accounts hosted by members of council or not sponsored by the town. And you say, in addition, any website activities such as blog accounts for a member of council will be deactivated on their page and will be removed, etc. So this is just speaking specifically to any information that's on the town page that's listed under a councillor or a mayor, not necessarily reflecting those of people who have private websites or private blogs or private entities. This is specific just to that.
Mr. Duran.
Through Mr. Chair, that is correct.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to make sure because just the way it was written didn't really necessarily state it that way. So I just wanted to make sure for the public, excuse me, and everybody understood it was specific to the town website. And my other concern was what Mayor Morax put on the floor with the rentals. I was kind of perplexed by that too. So thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Gardner.
Thank you. I lost connection for a bit, so I apologize if this has been asked. Why was the definition for claimed removed from this policy?
Mr. Duran.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we just didn't think it was necessary to this policy itself. We think it's acclaimed is covered in other areas.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any further questions? If not, I'll go back to Mayor Maracas for his amendment. Seeing none, Mayor Maracas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to put an amendment that the policy be amended to disallow the rental of any town facility for election campaign purposes.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Humphreys. Any discussion? Seeing none. Oh, sorry, Councillor Gallo.
Thank you. And when I read that, I stood out for me, and I tried to wrap my head. I didn't ask anyone. But I actually thought it was there specifically because we're moving into a ward system, and that if a candidate wanted to have a function at a park somewhere within their ward, that they could rent that park facility and have their function to communicate to the constituents in that ward. That's kind of why I thought that was there, and I didn't think there was any issue with that. So I still haven't heard what the problem is with this, if it's equal across the board for every candidate, and every candidate has the opportunity to rent a facility. What is, I fail to see the negative part of this if it's equal across the board. And again, initially I thought it's a good thing for a ward council to be able to communicate to their constituents. So I'll wait and listen to see if anyone else can share their view.
Councilor Gallo. Councilor Humphreys, you're next. To the amendment.
Thank you. Yes, to the amendment. For me, it just makes it clear. Putting myself, an opportunity to rent space, and it could be so, I think, touchy when it comes time to where we would like to, some candidates like to promote themselves through campaigning, through special events at the town, Rev Fest, the farmers market, these types of things that, it states like not to participate in those types of events to do that. So for me, it's just something that I actually, until I saw this today, I thought it was always just not allowed. And absolutely when, once the, things are back, when you're not campaigning, to do this for sure. I just think from a campaigning perspective, it's just something, I just don't feel that that's something that we've ever done before. And I really don't see it as something that I would be interested in doing, even for myself moving forward.
Thank you, Councilor Humphreys. Mayor Maracas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And to Councilor Gallo's point, I mean, maybe ultimately there might not be a problem if you look at it from a parks perspective, but the clause that's been put in there for 1.6 speaks specifically to also community centers. And when you look at the rest of it, as I mentioned, that goes in there, that was originally in there from 1.1 or 1.5, it's contradicted. So you actually have to take out one or the other. You can't have all of them in there at the same time, the way it's actually written, because one says no person shall use town resources for campaigning. Another clause says that no campaigning signs or material may be displayed in any town owned or operated facility. So you can't display any campaigning material in any town owned facility. Well, then how can you rent a town facility for campaigning purposes? And so, a park scenario, as Councilor Gallo mentioned, I can see that, especially as we're moving into a ward system, that maybe someone wants to have a park within their ward, be able to maybe hold a little barbecue or something to get to know the residents within the area. Absolutely. And if it's fair right across the board, it's fair right across the board. But if we're going to still continue to allow the community centers in there, then we need to change a lot more wording than just leave it the way it is. Like, there's a lot more that needs to be done within this policy if we're going to do that. But I still stand. I just say let's just take it out for now. If someone wants to make that change and look at least allowing the parks, I can be swayed to maybe move into that direction. But we'll see what everyone else has to say.
Thank you, Councilor Gardner.
Thank you. I certainly agree with renting a physical space in a building, but I think the point about parks is very valid, because we are going to be in a ward system, and why not use a park that's a candidate is going to be in that ward? I think the park part needs to come out. I would like to make an amendment to the amendment, if that's possible.
Well, I could ask for a friendly amendment if the mover wants to do it, or we'd have to deal with it separately.
Could you ask the mover if it could be a friendly amendment? Mover and seconder.
Mayor Maracas.
Mr. Chair, I was just reading it, and maybe the clerk can clean it up. I would have no problem if we amended it to, or change the language as a friendly amendment, that the policy be amended to disallow the rental of any town facility for election campaign purposes, exempting parks or something. If we kind of, exempted the parks, because right now, the way my amendment reads is that it's disallowing rental of any town facility. So if we can just put in something that exempts the parks as part of that, then that I'm fine. I'm comfortable with that. If the seconder's fine with that as well.
And our seconder was, I think, Councillor Humphreys. Do you have any concerns with that friendly amendment, Councillor Humphreys?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair.
Just a yes or no.
Yeah, okay. I'm okay.
Thank you. So
Thank you.
Councillor Gardner, you still have the floor.
That's all I have to say on the amendment.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Humphreys.
No, thank you. Just to add to just some comments. I mean, initially when I read this, I was thinking more in terms of rooms, facilities, the council chambers, things of that nature. But in terms of parks, I kept thinking about events, special events, but it does make it clear here that, we're not to campaign during special events in any town operated parks or areas. So I guess this is just outside of that when there's no events going on. If they want to have a barbecue or something, it's fine. So I appreciate the update and the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Kim, to the amendment.
Thank you. In terms of parks, allowing parks during a normal non-campaign period, that should be permissible because, ward councillors, that's the only place you're going to have events and share information or so forth. But from a national campaign perspective, I don't see how renting a town space, including a park, and holding a campaign event is any different than having a sign at a town park or any town facility or property. So I cannot separate in my mind a park from any other town property. So I would not be in favor of the amendment. I thought the concern that was raised was during non-campaign season in the other 3 or 3.5 years or so. But I think during campaign time, I think we should be consistent with all town property. Thank you.
Councillor Gilliland.
Thank you. Some comments about the amendment to the amendment. Looking at that, I also had thought about parks as well. And I just kind of thought, well, it's kind of, let's just lump it all together the way it is. But thinking about parks, if there was some sort of policy, you had to, specifically book a date and for purposes, and there was rules and parameters around that. It does lend an opportunity for someone in that ward to, I guess, gather some residents and do something. I think I'm okay with that. However, it's just defining what would be considered a park. Is there designated parks that you can only be at? And I kind of pointing to a location such as Town Square. It's an outdoor gathering area. And was that something that would be considered a park? And I don't know if that would be a very suitable place to be holding campaign meet and greets at Town Square, just because it's a big facility. But if it was just like, a smaller park in the area where, grassy outside, like, would that be something that would be able to differentiate appropriate spots within the wards to where we can identify these would be appropriate places on town property where you could do a campaign meet and greet? Would that be something that would make more sense, I guess, through Mr. Chair and Mr. Clerk? Is that something that would make more sense?
Mr. Duran.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I think we put a recommendation for a policy forward. I'm not sure if it's my place to say what would make sense. I think, what council's proposing, either through what you're proposing or with the amendment on the floor is certainly possible from a staff perspective.
I see. Okay. I mean, I like the idea of parks. I kind of like, wow, okay, this is actually good. It gives us a little bit of leeway, but then I think it does open a different can of worms where it's open for interpretation. And I don't think that interpretation has really been identified. So just to think the way it's written by including parks, I just don't think I could support it this time. I'd rather just exclude the entire thing.
Thank you. Before I go to other members of council for a second time, just my own thoughts. I was supportive of the motion originally where everything is excluded. I'm concerned about carving out parks. I think of access for all. Does now all of a sudden it become a race to book the park as early as possible? Does everybody who's a candidate have equal access to it? Does it put staff in an awkward position whereby, candidates may say that those incumbents have the inside track to booking these? I like the idea that perhaps there are specific dates or specific parks, or there's a little bit of more rules and regulations around it. I just think that, as Councillor Gilliland put it, it may be opening up a can of worms, and I'll take the time between now and council to think more about it. I do agree with some of the ideas expressed that, from a ward perspective, it's a good idea to be able to have an opportunity to have that barbecue, to have a meet and greet. But I just think that there needs to be some more work done on how we would manage that so that it seems fair and equal to all, and not just, those that, first come, first serve, so to speak. But so I won't be in favor of the motion as it stands, as it's amended. But, I'll do some further conversations with the clerk between now and then. Mayor Maracus, back to you for a second. Oh, actually, sorry, you weren't next on the list. Councillor Gallo was next for a second time.
Yeah, and I'm okay with all of the discussions really, and I have no issue with maybe spending a little more time on putting some boundaries around maybe which parks or but that concept to me, at least initially and now as well, made sense, because ultimately isn't our goal to connect with as many people as we possibly can, and I can't think of a better place than to do that in community parks. I think if I heard correctly, this was available to anyone before anyway. Nobody seemed to have used it, at least not that I can remember, but it isn't any different than it was before. It's just happened to be codified, and now we're kind of picking at it. So it was possible before, nobody actually used it. Perhaps nobody knew they could use it. But yeah, between now and council, if there's some work towards fine tuning that, I'd be in support of it.
Thank you. Mayor Marcus.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I mean, hearing the comments around the table, while I was okay to make the friendly amendment, I do see some of those concerns as far as the equity and how it'd be fair for all the candidates. Maybe ultimately it is. Maybe it is where there's specific dates that are carved out where it's basically all candidates in that ward can use that park on that day at the same time, and they can all be there. And maybe that's where the fairness comes in, and it allows for all of them to be there. But I think that there's a lot more work to be done in developing that. So I'm not sure how to proceed, because I still think that we do need to remove the town facility part of it. So maybe at this point, I don't know if I just remove that friendly amendment and put it back to the way it originally was. And
I don't think that's an option for you, Council.
Why is that not an option for me?
It's on the floor now. You can't just arbitrarily remove it.
I'm the mover.
You accepted it. It's on the floor.
Well, then
I'll go to the clerk.
Mr. Clerk.
But it's been accepted by the mover and seconder.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I think in the spirit of a friendly amendment, if all of council were to agree, I think that's okay. I think we've done maybe not something like that before, but we've certainly made, when all of council agrees on one thing, I think it's fine. But I would say that even if I would say not just the mover and seconder, quite frankly, I think it should be all of council that agrees to remove wording. If not, then I would agree with you that the wording on the floor would stand.
It's almost like we're voting on it.
Well, yeah. Well, Mr. Chair, then I'll just let it stand as that. You know what? I moved it, so I'll vote in favor of it at this time. But I'll wait to see what happens when we get to council as well. Hopefully, we can have, maybe something can be brought forward by the clerk that can help have a little bit more clarity as far as what could happen in the parks.
My apologies. I just saw that Councillor Gallo raised a point of order. I assume that's what the clap was.
It was until I heard the comments from the mayor, and so if it stands, I'll remove that.
Sorry, Mayor Marcus, continue.
Yeah, so I'll basically wait until council next week. Hopefully, we have our 3 weeks from now, and hopefully we can have some more detailed information in regards to this, and we can make a more informed decision on how we're going to move forward in this regards.
The clerk did lean over and indicate there is another option if council is willing. We could split the motion so that parks and facilities are separated, and council would then vote on that amended as split that way.
And I'm fine with that, Mr. Chair.
Is the seconder fine with that approach, Councillor Humphreys? And that's what we'll do. We'll split it. So that one part will be with respect to the renting spaces at community centers and facilities, and the second one would be with respect to parks. Councillor Humphreys.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And no, it's been good conversation because again, initially I just thought no, and I kept thinking we've never done this before. I was surprised to hear earlier that this has always been allowed. And, many of us have been on for almost 10 years now. I'm surprised a lot of us, I think, would have taken advantage of it if it was something that we were understood and in previous council would have. So I would really appreciate maybe just a little more digging and, if this is the way it's always been, which is fine, and others didn't know about it and didn't want to take advantage of it. I'd love to see a little more in the recommendations in terms of thinking about campaigning and what that'll look like. Because, it would be a little unfair of those of us who've been on council. We could already start booking now and, put our permits, get our things done. So I really think before we all, it's become a discussion point where I don't know if anyone else around the table knows, but I never heard of this being an option. It was always to stay away. Campaigning was not to be on any town-owned properties or venues or parks. I like the idea when you start talking about parks. Here's some perspectives. I get it. And that's okay. I'd love to see it go just a little bit more further just to make sure we don't just turn this into something chaotic during campaign time. And I do want to see it as fair. I know that if we wanted to, I can book it every single weekend, a park that I like. And I could do that right now, knowing that this is available. So I think we really need to be careful about how we do this. I like what I heard Councillor Thompson and Mayor Marcus had said, talk about maybe something, all at the same time, where all the councils going, running in that ward can use the park for themselves. They could show up or not show up, but it's available to them. I'm just thinking about how this will all work. And again, can't help but say that there have been so many councils before us. I can't imagine one councillor not ever realizing that they could do this. So thanks for the update. Thanks for the information. I'm okay right now, but I'm going to be looking for some hopefully some more detail by the next by council by voting, and I'll be thinking about it a lot further to complete my thought process on this. But I do appreciate the conversation. It was good. Thank you.
Seeing no further comments or questions, I'll ask the clerk to put it on the floor and we will split it. So to the first part, all those in favor of the motion on the floor? On the screen, actually.
Mr. Chair, it's very hard to see on the screen. Would you be able to read it? I'm not sure.
You can't see the screen?
No, it's just a very small box. There we go.
That the main motion be amended by adding the following clause, that the policy be amended to disallow the rental of any town facility for election campaign purposes. Once again, all those in favor? Opposed? Now for the second part. The motion be that the town parks be allowed to be rented for campaign purposes. All those in favor? Hands high so I can see. Opposed? Motion defeated. Now we'll return to the main motion. Oh, actually, Councillor Gallo, did you want to put forward an amendment with respect to the issue you raised with 1.12?
I did. I'll put a motion forward to remove that, at least for this next campaign cycle. But I'd love to hear everyone else's perspective on that.
So the motion, can I get a seconder? Councillor Gardner, the motion is to remove clause 1.12, photographs and videos produced for and owned by the town may not be used for campaigning. Any comments or questions? Nope. The clerk would like to make a suggestion.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I think it might be more effective to add that, or the amendment be that candidates for election be permitted to use videos and photos produced by the town in their election material. I think if it was just removed, you could still make an argument that these are still corporate resources that and someone's using. So I think to include that it is actually permitted would be more effective.
Councillor Gallo, you fine with that?
I am.
Perfect. And as the seconder, Councillor Gardner, you're fine with that?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Any comments or questions?
May I, Mr. Excuse me, Mr. Chair, yes. Can you please hold up, was it 6.1 we're referring to? 2.1?
1.12.
1.12?
Yes.
Can you put it up if you don't mind? I hate to ask you guys, but just, I'm having problems with my laptop and I'm using my little phone. 1.12?
You're looking for the motion that's on the floor or what it says?
No,
in the policy?
what it says in the policy, if that's okay.
I don't know how easy it is for them to put it up, but in the meantime, I will read it. What it says in the policy is photographs and videos produced for and owned by the town may not be used for campaigning.
Okay, good.
I don't see anyone. I do have a comment. I support the idea that because of certainly the last 2 years and everything being online, the ability to use council meetings, general committee meetings, those that are public on the YouTube for whatever purpose. But I'm not sure about all photographs and all videos produced. The town does a number of different things. Some of them not necessarily related specific to the campaign, the council meetings, but to other events, to other promotions. And so I just don't want to have a blanket statement. I'd be supportive if it was limited to the meetings themselves, but not necessarily everything that is produced for and owned by the town. Again, I think this is one that, I think there is a middle ground, that there can be some compromise. But again, I think it needs to have some parameters around it rather than just a blanket statement that anything produced and owned by the town can be used. So I won't support the motion for today. Hopefully, perhaps we can have some further conversation around it. And by the time it comes up at council, and maybe there is a way to parcel this out so that meetings are fine, but other material is not. Councillor Gallo?
That was actually my intent. I didn't want to open up to everything. It was solely our meetings, which are really the important stuff. It wasn't the intent for everything else. It was only general committee and council and
Public planning.
Whatever's on the YouTube channel.
As the seconder, I agree with that.
And Mr. Kirk, can you wordsmith it a bit so that it's really, that it's limited to the meetings themselves? Yep. No problem. While he's wordsmithing this, any further comments or questions? Councillor Kim.
Thank you. Just quickly, I'm in agreement with that. Any public meeting that we've had that should be available to the public for use. So I'm fine with that as long as it's limited to public meetings.
Mr. Clerk, do you have it?
Close.
While the clerk works with, I think we all understand the intent that that clause will be amended so that all candidates can utilize public meetings. Is everybody comfortable voting on it without seeing the motion, knowing that it'll be at council? Seeing that, all those in favor? Carried. Okay, back to the main motion as amended. Any further conversation? Seeing none, all those in favor as amended? Carries. Thank you, council. Last item in section 9 is the property tax and water bill payment options. Can I get a motion to put the staff recommendation on the floor? Councillor Humphreys, Councillor Kim. Any comments or questions? Councillor Gilliland.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, to Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel. If we were to move forward with this today and there was a constituent that still wanted to pay cash for whatever their own personal reasons, is there a way they could still pay cash?
Ms. Quattriochi?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, on behalf of Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel, who's not here this evening, there is an alternative to pay cash. Residents can go to their financial institutions any day and pay cash to both their water accounts and their property tax accounts. That's available today. It will still be available in the future. So it is an alternative right now.
Councillor Gilliland?
Thank you. That's what I wanted to know.
Councillor Gardner?
Sorry, Mr. Chair, my hand was still raised. I should have lowered it.
Oh, that's fine. Any further comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Oh, sorry, Councillor Gallo.
I just wanted to confirm what I heard because I wasn't necessarily in support of this until I heard that last comment, just to confirm that if someone wanted to pay cash, they can go to their bank, take their bill and pay cash for it.
Yes, but I'll have Mrs. Quattrio confirm.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, that's correct. They can go into their bank and take as much cash as they want, and they can pay their property tax and water bills there. And that will still be available tomorrow as well. So.
Councillor Gallo? Good. Seeing no further comments or questions, all those in favor? Carried. That concludes that portion of the agenda. We now move, there is a notice for motion, which we will deal with at council. There's no regional report tonight, so we'll move into new business. And I will start on my right. Councillor Gilliland. Councillor Kim. Mayor Maracas. Councillor Humphreys. Councillor Gallo. Councillor Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A motion, I'd like to support the motion the mayor is going to make about our delegation tonight from Mr. White. Or I could make a motion.
I think you mentioned that, and Mayor Maracas had an epiphany, and now he remembers that he was going to do that. But that's fine. You can move the motion.
I will let him move it, and I would like to second it. Thank you.
That's fine. Mayor Maracas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Councillor Gardner. You could have moved it. I would have seconded it. It's no problem. Mr. Chair, if I'd like to put a motion on the floor that staff report back in regards to the delegation tonight to a future council meeting.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Gardner. Any comments or questions specific to the delegate? I see Councillor Humphreys first, then Councillor Gardner. Councillor Humphreys.
Actually, Mr. Chair, I put my hand up in error. I have something at the end. I'm really sorry.
Good. Councillor Gardner.
Thank you. I'd like to just add something to it. Also, before that, Mr. Mayor, did you have a timeline when this could come back? maybe so that if it is our responsibility, it could be fixed this summer?
No, I mean, sorry, Mr. Chair, through you, Mr. Chair. Councilor Gardner, I would like to put a timeline on it, but I would like to get staff's perspective on that to make sure that they have enough time to bring us a full report that we'd be able to make a proper decision on. So I want to make sure that they have that time to give us to be able to bring it. So I didn't want to put a timeline on it without maybe speaking to staff first. So maybe, I don't know if our CAO
perhaps
or
you could come back at council.
Yeah.
And we could have further conversations with staff to get a sense of how much time it would take to put this report together. So for tonight, we'll pass the
Thank
motion
you.
and then get ready on the timelines.
Mr. Mayor, would it be okay if the motion says that council directs staff to investigate the town's responsibility for repair and ongoing maintenance? I guess adding of the retaining wall servicing Underhill Crescent and Ragewood Crescent. Could we just make it a little more specific?
Mayor Marcus?
I guess that's fine, but I think it was insinuated that that's what would be coming back. I would assume that would have been in the report, but I'm fine with adding in that detail.
That's fine.
Thank you. So just for the record, thank you. And I have to say, I've been calling this street Rachel Wood Court for all of my life in Aurora. Sorry, folks, it's Ragewood Court. Thank you.
Councilor Gallo. To the motion?
Okay, I was concerned about timing as well, but that'll come back.
See no further comments or questions. All in favor of the motion on the floor? It passes. Councilor Humphreys, you had something you wanted to add?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I realize it's not business, it's personal, so I may not be able to mention it, but if you have, if I can be allowed, it's just about the passing of former councillor.
Certainly, go ahead.
If that's okay, I know that we received notice about Councillor David Griffith, who was a councillor, longtime councillor years ago. And I'm a little surprised. I used to speak to his wife quite often on Cousins Drive. She has beautiful gardens. I just wanted to mention that this person's father was the first lineman in Sisman Shoes Factory. She told me the whole story. And he took and worked there as well with his father. There's a lot of information about David, and his brother is a huge historian in town. So I'm sad to hear of his passing, and I want to thank the town for already having prepared flags to be lowered in half-mast. But he seemed like an incredible person who served on council, and quite a lot of history in Aurora, and I just wanted to send out my sincere sympathies to his family.
Thank you, Councilor.
Thank you, Councilor Humphreys.
If there's no further new business, I'll move to public service announcements, and we'll go in reverse order. Councilor Gardner.
I can't think of anything at the moment. Thank you.
Councilor Gallo. Councilor Humphreys. Mayor Maracus.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple. Obviously, it's February, and the town of Aurora is proud to celebrate Black History Month, which began with a proclamation and a formal flag raising ceremony at Town Hall this afternoon, which all of you attended, which was great. Yeah, it was it's a good turnout. It was great to see everyone there, and for a historic event, it was the first time we've ever raised the Pan-African flag in the town of Aurora. So. Staff have completed the installation of all 7 outdoor rinks for our residents' enjoyment. The weather's perfect, so lace up your skates and get outside for some winter fun. For updates and locations of town rinks, visit aurora.ca/outdoor rinks. And also give a little kudos to Councillor Gallo. Thanks for the volunteer work that you do, I know, with your neighbors over at Diamond Jubilee Park. So thanks for all that and keeping that rink up and running. Aurora's overnight winter parking restrictions are currently in effect until April 15th, 2022. During this time, please do not park on the road between 2 a.m. and 6 a.m. And for more information, you can visit aurora.ca/winter parking. And I will leave it with starting this week. As we all know, the province of Ontario has permitted the reopening of indoor dining, gyms, recreation facilities, cinemas, event spaces, and other businesses at 50% capacity. Now, for the town, that means that in-person services at Aurora Town Hall, including payments for water, tax, parking tickets, or pet licenses, bag tag purchases, and more, you can come in. So please contact info@aurora.ca or call 905-727-1375 for more information. Permitting of arenas, sports domes, and other indoor spaces will be allowed. Club Aurora Fitness Center will reopen and virtual classes will continue. And anyone can visit aurora.ca/fitness classes to keep updated with that. Aquatic programs, lane swims, leisure swims, aquafit classes are all back. And you can visit aurora.ca/aquatics for more information on that. Public skating and stick and puck programs are back. So you can visit aurora.ca/skating for more information on that. And AFLC drop-in programs are back. So, and you can visit aurora.ca/AFLC drop-in for that. And I would also encourage anyone that is able to support our local businesses as they've opened back up for in-dining purposes. And that's all, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Kim. Councillor Gilliland.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. There were just a couple fun things that I wanted to mention because I know that it is February and we're all kind of stuck indoors, but we do have a couple contests that the town is doing for the community. One is the Aurora Snow Sculpture Contest, and that's create your own snow sculpture, and you submit it a photograph to Andrea Raju. And that's due February 13th. And then the other one is the Cabin Fever Reliever Photo Contest. So it's kind of fun. I've noticed some great ones on social media by the public. So you can definitely submit that. That's due February 7th to the same person, Andrea Araju, and you could find that online on the Aurora website. That's all. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Councillor Gardner.
Thank you. And with the reopening, there is a prediction that the healthcare system is going to continue to be stressed and possibly a little more stressed. So as a parent of a child who's waiting for surgery and has been waiting for a year, I would ask that the public enjoy this opening carefully, and hopefully you'll get your third inoculation. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Gardner. Council, we do have one item for closed session this evening, so I'll ask for a motion to move into closed. Mayor Maracus, Councillor Gilliland, as a reminder to those, to Councillor Humphreys, Gallo, and Gardner, you'll have to log off and then log on to the closed session. I believe Samantha sent the link to you.
Thank you.
All in favor? Yep.
I think we're ready, Councillor Humphries.
I don't believe Councillor Humphries is able to join us at this time. Oh, just a second. One technical difficulty, please bear with us. I understand from the clerk, we are good to proceed. Members council, we're reporting out of closed session. Can I get a motion to receive the verbal update from the CAO? Mayor Maracus, Councillor Gilliland, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. That concludes that portion. The only thing left we have is adjournment. May I have a motion to adjourn? Councillor Kim, Councillor Gilliland, all those in favor?